It's Fully Threaded Radio, episode 174.
If I had to guess out to like 6 to 9 months, and again, I give myself a 20-30%
chance of being right,
probability of being right. I think things will stay robust. I really do. I think what has happened around the world is that things have gotten more volatile, and in times like this, and I think in history too, the U.S. is generally speaking net beneficiary when the world goes more volatile. So I think foreign investments will probably come into the U.S. more as a result of more volatility overseas. Yeah. And also I think with the push to revitalize manufacturing domestically and to be less dependent on such a broad, wide-ranging, international supply chain.
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. This is the online, on-demand, predominantly fastener-related podcast that chronicles the North American fastener industry in all its threaded glory. So, if fasteners are your game, you've clicked on the right podcast, and we're glad you're here. Hey everyone, Eric Dudas here, and the co-host of Fully Threaded Radio is with us as well. From the FCH Data Lab and Petting Zoo in the heart of the greater Chicagoland area, he's Brian Musker. Hey, Brian. You doing all right?
The petting zoo's sort of gone, okay?
Are you kidding? Every time I talk to you, it sounds like the animal menagerie over there.
Yeah, I know. Well, I sort of, I've got more soundproof door, so there's less chance you can hear a dog barking or a parrot squawking or something like that.
I tell you, on this episode, there's more background animal noises, I think, than any episode. We got a few of them where I had to really do double duty to strip out all of the barking dogs. And we're going to have Jun Xu on later. And he was sitting in some kind of like a Garden of Eden, it sounded like, with all the wildlife behind him. But anyway, hopefully it won't be too distracting for you folks, because it is predominantly fastener related around here.
Right. Well, that's good. We do have to remember our little animals though too. So they're all a part of this in a way, be they fastener dogs or whatever.
That's true. The animal kingdom is always around us, but so is the fastener kingdom, especially on this episode 174 of Fully Threaded Radio. This time we're publishing on March 17th, 2022. I tell you, Brian, we've had double features and even triple feature episodes in the past, but today's episode is like a quadruple feature episode because we have 4 guests on today's show who cover a lot of territory during their respective segments, and each with a very powerful message.
Well, if you consider what Carmen's been doing on the Fastener Training Minute lately, you could probably say it qualifies as a quintuple feature episode.
That's a good point, yes. Yeah. Our 2 cameo segments, the Training Minute and the News Report, have become features unto themselves, which is a good thing. Same low price, by the way, folks. You could say it's a hyper-threaded episode, I think, Bri.
Wow. So how did you dream that up then? This is pretty wildly techie for us. You'll be talking about blockchains next.
We're going to go with it. Yeah, well, we have a follow-on to that story on today's episode as well.
Good.
But the big story, I think, is we're witnessing end-stage irresponsibility in all its ugly manifestations around the world these days, folks, and they're now crashing into the fastener industry head-on. We discuss some dramatic developments today, and no doubt by the time you hear this podcast, some of the information will have been superseded by whatever is coming our way next. Thus, the challenge in recording ahead of time, which is the way we have to do it here at FTR. Nevertheless, it's an especially good episode, and I think you'll find that the commentary is still quite relevant. Case in point, Star Stainless President Tim Roberto Jr. joins us to present an appraisal of the situation with nickel and then downstream stainless. Well, that takes place just ahead of the news segment today. Meanwhile, he gives an impromptu and thoroughly impressive lesson in options trading.
Oh, yeah, I know. That's wild.
You've no doubt heard and seen the hyperbolic headlines about the explosion in the nickel market. Well, Tim provides his view on what's happening. Right after that, the hyper-focused Mike McNulty welcomes Brighton Best International president Jun Xu to discuss the February FDI report. He's got some comments about the pricing picture these days, and although things have shifted since we recorded that, he was right on with his overall message, so you're not going to want to miss it. Plus, John also waxes eloquent on the importance of staying curious, and he also offers some thoughts on the importance of U.S. strength in the world economy. It's another really solid Fastener News Report. During our main feature segment today, we talked to Ken Misch, who's a senior director with Würth Industry North America, and he's got a unique perspective on the future of distribution centers as top facilities manager for WINA. During this conversation, you'll definitely feel like the age of the Jetsons is here.
Well, Doctor Who at least.
Yeah, I forgot about that comment.
We don't have the music we can play, though.
I should have preloaded it. Anyway, you get the point, folks. A lot of futuristic things happening in the world of warehousing and distribution. And we'll kick it all off today with a discussion that follows from last episode, focusing on blockchain, as financial advisor and host of the Spotify podcast, The Blockchain Advisor, Mr. Bill Ulivieri, joins us to explain how fastener distributors can set themselves up to accept digital currencies. Cryptos is basically what he's describing here, everybody.
Yeah.
Not the forthcoming CBDC we've been hearing so much about. Not yet, at least. It's a great practical segment. Plus, Carmen Vertullo has yet another Fastener Training Minute. This time he discusses torquing nylon insert lock nuts, which is not as straightforward as some might think.
Right. Well, after last month's episode, where Carmen completely destroyed all my views on how to use jam nuts, this is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, he's good that way.
I even wrote him a letter telling him that I've been doing it wrong for all my mechanical life.
Well, he's got a whole pile of those over there at his facility at AIM Test Labs, I guarantee you. Well, it's a very full episode, and we've got a full lineup of sponsors. Bri, that's your department. Lay them on us.
Right. We're lucky to have great sponsors, and we've had them for a long time, so we're doubly or triply lucky. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Brighton Best International, Gerbil Fasteners, and Star Stainless Screw Company. Brighton Best International, tested, tried, and true. Gerbil Fasteners, quality the first time. Star Stainless Screw Company, right off the shelf. Also sponsoring Fully Threaded Radio are Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Fastener Fair USA, InSequel Software, ND Industries, Parker Fasteners, 3Q Inc., Stelfast, Volt Industrial Plastics, Würth Industry North America, and Solution Industries, home of Solution Man. Thanks to our great sponsors, and as you as listeners, what you should be thinking is if you need fasteners, then these are the people you should look for first, okay? Because they help bring you Fully Threaded Radio.
That's the main message. And we do a lot of things over here at the FCH Sourcing Network. The podcast is one. The Fastener Distributor Index is another. I know a lot of you look at that every month. And our partners in all of that are our sponsors. We appreciate it. I should have pointed out last episode, Bri, there was a headline, Würth Industry has committed again to support the Fastener Training Institute for the year. I guess you'd call that enabling sponsorship. They're providing a lot of support, making a lot of things happening. It's a wonderful gesture.
Yeah, it is, and it's very necessary. And we know the Fastener Training Institute does great work and even has Carmen Vertullo with them.
He's everywhere. And if you look at what is happening at the associations, you see our sponsors there too. They're supporting all of the events, the golf outings, everything. So these are the companies that are shaking it up out there. When you see them at the shows and so forth, let them know you appreciate it. Hey, Preston Boyd gave us a call the other day, Bri. I don't think I told you about this. Many of you know Preston. He's had a lengthy career in the thread game, including a long stint at Tramec. These days, he's working with Dan Walker over at the Industrial Fasteners Institute, and they've committed to getting more involved with the associations and shows. So expect to see more of the IFI at these events in the future.
Yeah, good. They're sort of a bit of a hidden flower.
Yeah, it's always been this relationship that I guess I understand it, but I always wished we could bust through. We may one day soon fulfill my dream of having that big golf tournament between the the IFI guys and the NFDA guys. I keep pushing for that, and eventually it could happen. It sounds like it's more likely now than ever.
Okay, well, good.
Well, we'll have Preston Boyd on the podcast in the near future. We'll talk a little bit more about this idea, why they've decided to do this, and what they're doing. So look forward to that. And we're going to jump into a few messages right now because, as you've heard, we have a very packed episode and we want to get to all of it. So thank you for listening into the podcast. We couldn't do it without you either. We appreciate you being here.
Right.
We'll be back in just a moment to put a wrench to this one. It's Fully Threaded.
Brian and Eric, Fully Threaded Radio. It's Fastener dog-approved talk radio for the fastener industry.
Stainless Dan here, coming to you from Star Stainless. From the beginning, Star has offered two major things to our customers. First, we stock a large diversified inventory of sizes, with inventory on hand so you can receive it right off the shelf. Second, we offer personal, friendly, efficient service from placing your order all the way to delivery. Star quality is more than products, just the way Wayne wanted it to be. It's simple. We're Star.
Goebel Fasteners increases efforts to maintain its reputation as the leading rivet source with a large inventory of parts and expedited delivery options. We have over $10 million worth of global inventory in stock at all times and pride ourselves on same-day or next-day shipping options that are available to all our customers. Goebel Fasteners, the leading rivet source.
Since 1985, the U.S. Anchor product line from Brighton Best International has consistently supplied distributors and end users with high-quality light, medium, and heavy-duty anchoring systems. As the anchoring business has matured over time, new products have been added to the U.S. Anchor lineup to meet the demands required on job sites and industrial facilities. This growth is due to a commitment to invest in product testing to meet and exceed strict industry standards. These new products deliver better performance and improved ease of installation. BBI consistently delivers high fill rates of U.S. Anchor products from 21 regional warehouses. For more information on all U.S. Anchor product lines, please visit www.brightonbest.com/US_anchor.
Hi, this is Dave, the voice of Buckeye Fasteners and Old Rusty Gold Beer, the preferred beer of the traveling salesman. And you are listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric, back with you on the online Fastener Party Bungalow.
Right. That sounds like the NCFA social rather than Fully Threaded Radio, okay?
Yeah, that's coming up in a second. And we're going to mention that here because we're going to jump right into the discussion with financial advisor Bill Ulivieri, but I want to jam in a few calendar events ahead of that because we're going to talk to Tim later where we usually discuss this kind of stuff. The Southwest Fastener Association has two events coming up. The first one's March 29th. That's their fabled annual golf outing. Now, don't forget, folks, this is another chance to earn the coveted FTR award for yourself. Plus, you'll have a lot of fun with all of the hillbilly fastener guys down there.
Well, I think the Fully Threaded hat's sort of more coveted than the bush, okay?
Well, I keep telling you, Brian, it depends who you ask, but
okay,
it is a cool hat. And Jake's got that handled for us this time, so we're in good hands. That's happening at Texas Rangers Golf Club near Arlington, Texas,
cool.
March 29th. April 14th, this is a little unique in the fastener industry these days. The Southwestern Fastener Association's holding a sporting clay event.
Oh.
That's taking place at the American Shooting Center, which is near Houston. Details for both of these events at the SWF website, which is southwesternfastener.org. Now, due east and a little further down the calendar, April 25th through the 27th, it's the annual Southeastern Fastener Association Spring Conference. This is happening in Greenville, South Carolina at the Embassy Suites Golf Resort and Conference Center. CIFA website is thecifa.com. Man, I would like to make it down for that one, Bri. I haven't been to that part of the world in a while.
No, I haven't been there for years and years, actually.
You're getting to Bob Reynolds country down there. And Eurolink.
Yeah, I know.
And Robbie Gilchrist.
Yeah.
A lot of good people out that way. There's a lot of great CIFA members as well. So Spring Conference, April 25th through the 27th. Then in May 5th to be precise, Cinco de Mayo, the North Coast Fastener Association's holding its annual soiree, which you just mentioned, Bri. Tends to be a little bit of a party bungalow atmosphere. And that's happening in Independence, Ohio. This time around, I know they've got a factory tour happening over at Telefast, and there's another one happening also during the day that's ahead of the social itself. They usually arrange a few events to warm everybody up and the out-of-towners and that.
Yeah.
We're also trying to gel it up with Carmen Vertullo to speak just in advance of the doors opening, like we used to do in the old days.
Yeah.
He's got a head of steam to come back to Cleveland because he always has such a fun time out here. I think he has his presentation pretty much lined up for this, and don't be surprised if it includes a short discussion about Smart Cert, which he's very high on. Several companies that we know have adopted Smart Cert as their standard, as you know, Bri.
Right. Well, several companies who are members of FCH have. We don't just know them.
Right. And with the InSequel partnership as well, it's all matching up. So a lot of companies are jumping on that bandwagon. Anyway, the Distributor Social, May 5th. And if you're just tired of hanging around in bars during the week, give us a call because Brian and Eric will be doing some fishing that week, and we're going to take a few guys out here and there. So Don't forget about that. You can get with us, FTR at fullythreaded.com. Oh, lest I forget, happening during the same week in Cleveland, this is going to make it a real party bungalow. The Fastener Training Week is happening.
Oh,
so get your people involved in that. Make it a real gala.
Which means unlimited supplies of coffee for you. Okay.
How sweet it is. That's right. Joe Morris and her endless coffee pot will be here.
I have to sneak around and pull the plug out the back of it.
Are you kidding? Now, the master stroke would be to team her up with Jake. You know, I never thought of that. U-Bolt Blend should be the official brew of the Fastener Training Institute. This is genius. I don't know. We're going to have to get them together, Bri.
Okay. Well, they'll both be there.
He's out there now serving U-Bolt Blend, or he will be, to the Pac West people during their tabletop. Anyway, I think most of the people, not the Fastener Training Week people, but everyone else is going to be swilling beer and mixed drinks for the most part. Similarly, at Fastener Fair USA, which will be right after that, May 17th through the 19th in Detroit, this is shaping up to be another successful show. The world is on track to welcome the Fastener community back to Detroit, which we are comfortably situated at. We're on the floor plan already, strategically located right next to Craig with Eurolink Fastener Supply Service.
Cool. Well, we had a meeting about 3 years ago, so at Detroit was great.
I really enjoyed that opening cocktail party in the lobby of the GM building. That is a great facility.
It's cool. Yeah, and the weather hotel and everything is, I mean, you were one street over from the river. It's really, and you can look across to Canada if you want to look at the nice old Canadian flag flying over there. So it was just a very interesting place.
Well, that may be as close as I get to Canada for quite a while, but I never thought of it quite that way. Fastener Fair USA, everybody, May 17th through the 19th.
Right.
Whichever side of the border you come from, be there. And one more quick piece of business before we get to our discussion on setting yourself up to use Bitcoin in the Fastener game. FCH is your source for hard-to-find fastener inventory. I hope you're all using the network whenever the need comes up. It's fastenersclearinghouse.com. It's our main thing. We also do quite a bit of data cleansing. We call it scrubbing. And I'm reaching out to those of you who are doing shopping cart projects. It seems like it's happening quite a bit these days. I don't know if it's a springtime thing, but if you're looking down the road at a data cleansing project, get those conversations with FCH started as soon as you can, because the project backlog is starting to grow. We can usually turn them around pretty quickly, mainly dependent on who's in front of you. So don't wait. Thanks to those of you who have reached out already, and we've done some really interesting projects recently. We'd be happy to do one for you.
Yeah. So just remember, the real problem when you try and put your inventory on a website is that you can't just dump it up there in the way that you sent it to us. You got to know which are all the bolts, which are all the screws, which are all the washers, what sorts of washers are they, what sizes are they, what materials are they, what coatings are they. You have to know all that stuff. What threads, is it unified national, coarse, fine? And you can do this all yourself. It just takes months and months. Or you can get FCH to do it, okay? We can do it for you in a couple of days, depending on how you specify it, if you've got yourself on organized.
Get out to fastenersclearinghouse.com. Look on the services link. There's a short white paper on the scrubber. Then give us a call. We're going to cut to our first feature now, Bri, which I know is right up your alley.
Yeah, it is.
I think you had to take care of one of the animals while I was recording this, so you didn't get to sit in, but that's okay because Bill Ulivieri had a lot to say. I kind of put him on autopilot, and he took it away. And I think many people in the FTR audience are going to find this a valuable conversation.
Cool.
We spoke a lot about blockchain as the backbone technology of supply chain management systems during episode 173 of the podcast, and we received some good feedback on that. But it's very true that most people think of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and others when they hear the term blockchain. And it's true. Cryptocurrencies and digital currencies, which are two separate but very related ideas, by the way, folks, both use blockchain. And the whole thing becomes a big mess because by and large, the coverage of these topics in the general media, it's so general that the distinctions often become blurred. So in our tireless effort to bring you, the FTR audience, relevant and timely fastener-related content, I set out to locate someone who could help us to understand a very practical aspect of all of this, and that is how fastener distributors can set themselves up to accept and use cryptocurrencies in their business. You hear about this more and more often. As often happens, a longtime friend of mine has a friend who knows all about this. He's Bill Ulivieri. He's co-founder of Senecal Capital Management. Now, they do several things, but one of them is bridging the gap between traditional investing and digital assets. You'll get the idea why in a second, folks. He's also the host of the Blockchain Advisor podcast, which is available on Spotify. Now, he came into this world after a long career in the more conventional world of commodities trading, and he joins us now. Bill, thanks for being here today.
Eric, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Oh, believe me, we've been needing a guy like you for quite a while. We're all confused about this.
Well, everything new is a little confusing, is that you work up the learning curve. It can be steep for every subject that we get involved with.
Well, folks, you heard the intro to all this. Just to give a little more background, when I got on this trail, I invited Bill to participate with me in a Zoom call that we put on last week. And we were talking to a group of people who are not fastener people, but they're just generally interested in preserving their assets in these tumultuous times. And so I got a good feel for how Bill speaks. And I thought, geez, it's going to be very appropriate for the FTR audience. So during our get to know each other phase, Bill, I was very pleasantly surprised that you have a fastener background, a small one, but nevertheless, you know the industry a little bit, don't you?
I do. My grandfather owned a cash register repair business. So we always come from the manufacturing and metal business. My dad started his personal business as a side gig in the 1960s. He started an automatic screw machine shop using a Sears credit card in the late 1960s. And he worked two jobs. He worked at a company called Teletype, which was a subsidiary of Bell & Howell, in the machine shop area in what was called T1, using Brown & Sharp and Harding machines. And then he realized he didn't want to be, the guy that retires at age 62 with a gold watch. And he wanted to always be an entrepreneur. So he started his own business, again, in the late 60s using the Sears credit card. And it finally became a family-run business where my mom was the accountant in bookkeeping. I would clean up the oil dry and sweep it up off the floor, as well as stock the 10-foot metal bars into the screw machines. And as a child, my mom would pick me up from grammar school, and she would, at 3:30, and we would go over to my dad's shop where I would take a quick nap on a shelving unit, right, for about 45 minutes, and then get up and get back to work. And we would all head home around 8 o'clock, and my dad would then work the midnight shift at Teletype. So it's definitely a blue-collar family, a lot of metal. We love metal. I mean, end of story. I remember my dad making fun of the Picasso, that statue that was fabricated out of Core 10 in Chicago, the famous Picasso statue and Daly Center. My dad shouted at the TV, saying it was a huge waste of good metal. So, definitely come from a metal background.
Right. A lot of people in the Chicagoland area felt like that was a big eyesore, and probably still do. But yeah, that's a great story. We've heard other similar stories on the podcast of family businesses just growing from very humble beginnings. But in your case, you decided that you wanted to do something different, which led you into the world of trading and now doing what you do here, which is advising people about investments and assets in general. And of course, in the modern day, that means the world of cryptos, and you have a vast knowledge of digital currencies and related subjects. So here we are. I threw it out before, but what we really want to zero in on this time, Bill, is how distributors can get themselves well positioned to be ready to either accept or use cryptos or digital currencies in their business.
Sure, Eric. Well, and again, we'll have the flexibility to hop either to the Bitcoin cryptocurrency side or the stable coin, which acts more like a money market fund or US dollar. And so primarily, this is, I think, a really helpful conversation for small business owners because they have the flexibility of initiating and making decisions very quickly. And so primarily what a small business owner wants to do is make sure that they separate their personal cryptocurrency belongings and holdings from the ones that their business can hold. And why would a business want to accept cryptocurrency? Why would a business want to accept Bitcoin? And the prevailing theme is this. If you have a checking account or a bank account that has tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in an account earning basically zero, how do we protect ourselves against the ravages of inflation eating away at that checking account? Inflation is easily 7% annually and projected to be double that. So we're losing purchasing power. We're not really being good and faithful stewards of the cash management component of our business. And also we have to ask ourselves, is there a way to better direct those assets to benefit the company? So I've been suggesting to firms, and we do it here, and that is to open up, if I could just drop a name, Eric, that would be to open up a Coinbase Commerce business account. Coinbase is by far way ahead of the game in terms of meeting the needs and supporting small business owners and institutional players. It would permit a business owner to open up a commercial bank account and do several things. One is it would allow you to have one more format to manage your bank account, your deposits. You can receive payment for services and goods using PayPal or debit cards. And you could also simultaneously receive one of 7 or up to 7 cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and 5 other cryptocurrencies in payment for goods and services. So it's a very versatile platform and they're business friendly. So I think for most people in the small business community who are looking for an appropriate KYC, which is know your client, an AML, anti-money laundering structure, like a legitimate bank, Coinbase is really the closest thing that I've been able to find that makes it easy for small business owners to, again, beginning to accept Bitcoin as an asset for payment of services, or you can actually receive, in essence, what's digital US dollars. So you don't have to have and worry about the volatility and the fluctuations of Bitcoin on a minute-by-minute basis.
Yeah, it's important that you made that distinction. We're not now talking about speculating or so-called investing in Bitcoin or any cryptos right now. We're purely looking at the mechanics of how you would go about trading in that commodity because it's becoming more and more common.
This is becoming common also, Eric, because of what's been going on overseas in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. I have a friend who's in I don't want to say heating and air conditioning, but he's in the efficient energy business. And for him, he has a client in Amsterdam that is having difficulty making wire transfer payments and ACH payments just in Amsterdam for his consulting services. So it would make it very, very easy using the convenience of your smartphone to quickly and easily make a Bitcoin payment overseas in a matter of a few minutes. Or, again, you can send something that's very similar to a US dollar denominated in the number one, like a money market fund or a checking account. Amsterdam gentleman could send $1,000 and my friend who owns this business could receive it in a matter of seconds. And again, credited in his Coinbase account, which is then linked to another checking account, your primary business account. So Coinbase would be that a platform that would stand in between your company and your current bank account relationship with your banker.
Right, got it. So now let's say I'm your typical fastener company. Say I'm Parker Fasteners or BTM Manufacturing, and I've got a customer who wants to make an order, but they want to pay me for whatever reason using Bitcoin. Basic question, how do I know what even to charge them? Where do I look to see what the transfer even is?
Well, you would begin, once you open up your Coinbase account, once you have a method that can receive Bitcoin, the application on your phone or on your desktop application makes the conversion automatically. So you'll know exactly how many US dollars in Bitcoin you'll receive. So there's always an internal conversation going on inside your head. People in the United States, when they open up their app, their Bitcoin will be denominated in US dollars. It's $38,421 per Bitcoin. If you're in the EU, your program automatically converts it into EU. If you're in Amsterdam or South Africa, no matter where you are internationally, whoever's sending you that money will make that conversion internally to send you the US dollar value of Bitcoin or the EU amount of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin really is like this universal global currency, but the conversion is still made locally on your smartphone app or on your desktop. So that's the easiest part of the whole thing, is to say, this fastener job I have shipped to you was worth $52,128, right? $52,128. You would send them an invoice using QuickBooks, right, for that same amount. And on your QuickBooks invoice could be your Bitcoin address, the account number, so to speak, in order for you to receive that money. It's very simple, Eric, to be honest with you, but it does take a little getting used to get your first one done.
Well, anybody from the Stone Age like me who's been to an airport in another country and you walk in with a pile of U.S. money and you go up and you want to get some local currency, let's say you're in Argentina in the 90s like I was, and you wanted to buy a pocket full of Australes. Well, you could do that, but there was always an exchange rate, and you never really quite felt comfortable about what you're, at least I never did. I always felt like I was getting rolled. So how do you know what you're doing in that regard with an operator like Coinbase, or are they just pretty much the only game in town, so you take what you get?
I'm not going to say it's the only game in town, Eric. I'm just saying that I'm totally sensitive to the bid-ask spread when you look at foreign currencies, whether you're buying or selling them. Same experience as you. I landed at Heathrow Airport and was shocked to see what my US dollars would get in British pounds at the time. So basically, if you think of Bitcoin as a global currency, there kind of is no bid-ask spread as wide as your local bank or currency dealer. It's very, very, very tight. Now, Coinbase will charge a small processing fee, much like a brokerage fee. But the fees are very, very nominal. And again, you don't have to send Bitcoin. You can send USDC, US dollar. You can send, again, like I said, there's 7 cryptocurrencies that Coinbase accepts. But if you wanted Bitcoin, there'll be a small transaction fee, maybe $10 or $12 to send the Bitcoin. But the bid-ask spread that Coinbase uses, in my opinion, is very, very reasonable. It's not a usurious amount of spread width. And, Bitcoin does have its own volatility issues. But let me just also say, for those people that are a little bit more tech savvy and not in the Stone Age, there are other apps you can download and open and put in your company name, which actually allow you to send US dollars using the Bitcoin computer network. So Bitcoin is comprised of two parts. It's the payment rails, much like PayPal or the SWIFT system, and then it's the currency and the asset that goes on top of that. And maybe that's for another longer podcast. But again, for small business owners, open up a Coinbase commercial checking account, link it to your large bank like Chase or BMO Harris or whoever you use for traditional banking, your business account. Once you've done that, receiving Bitcoin, booking it as income, receiving Bitcoin for goods and services, that is it. It's easy peasy. It really is.
Okay, so a lot of people are thinking, well, these Bitcoins, they trade anywhere between, 35,000 a coin to 60,000 a coin, and they may go way higher. They've been a lot lower. Who knows what'll happen? But the point is, fractional Bitcoins exist, right? So a lot of people don't own even one whole Bitcoin. They own $200 worth, and that's some fraction of a Bitcoin. So that's a big part of it, isn't it?
Yes. So Bitcoin, just like the US dollar, the minimum amount you can send of dollars basically is a penny, 0.01. In Bitcoin, the smallest amount goes 8 decimal places to the right of the decimal point. So theoretically, you could send $1, $10, $5, depending on the application you use, anywhere in the globe almost instantaneously for virtually no fee. So again, this makes it ideal for small business owners who want to send money, again, anywhere in the globe. And it just kind of depends on how savvy you would consider yourself, how much patience you would have getting started, because it still is very new technology, not unlike the internet back in the mid-1990s, where setting up an email account or an AOL account was a little bit quirky. I remember my mom being highly resistant to getting a email account at AOL because she wanted to know what I had to say that was so important. I just couldn't mail her a regular letter. A few years later, I should say 10 years later, 15 years later, she had an Apple tablet on her treadmill FaceTiming my grandchildren. And my mom was 88 years old at the time. So it starts slow and then goes fast. And this is going to be no different. So I would encourage business owners who are having potentially, or who suspect, who believe that there might be a problem sending money around the world. Bitcoin and that network is a very viable alternative and something I would suggest that they have at least get started with.
Well, right. That's a great point. I mean, the impetus behind an idea to do this is a whole nother conversation, but there are a lot of reasons. And there are also a lot of reasons to, even though we can't know the volatility of it, we can know that the infrastructure supporting it is very, very likely to survive whatever disasters befall us in the future. You sent me some information on that recently, Bill, and I do appreciate it because my eyes were opened.
Sure. Well, we also have to remember that the banks are primarily closed from Friday at 3 o'clock until Monday morning at 8 or 9 a.m. So every week, 52 weeks a year, the banks are closed for about 60 hours, 6-0. And so Bitcoin, again, the Bitcoin network is open 24/7, 365. It's never closed for holidays. There's no bank holidays. There's no ATM going down. You can send value in payment 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, again, for virtually zero cost and almost instantaneously. And I think that it's the future of money. It really is. Despite everything you hear about going on in legislation or the nefarious actions going on with Bitcoin, the truth is banks are moving in this direction. There's no doubt about it. Visa and MasterCard are moving there. PayPal, you may not hear about it very often in the news, but I guarantee you the banking system is already looking at this because they can save 80% of their costs of wire transferring money. And so the future's already here. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah. Can you believe it? The mainstream media outlets are not keeping us advised. Well, hard to believe, but true. Bill, you're doing a great service, I think, to a lot of listeners. And I want to add, I don't think we're going to get during this conversation to one of the points, and that is making the distinction between the digital currencies, the cryptos, and so forth. I want to point out to everybody something I've mentioned on previous episodes, and that is a great podcast you should listen to get a very thorough overview of this topic. It's episode 328 of the Corbett Report. The title of that episode was The Bitcoin PSYOP. Again, that's the Corbett Report, episode 328. Don't miss that to get more clarity on that. I'm going to ask you one esoteric question about the mechanics of all this, and then I want to ask you a little bit about this executive order that just hit the headlines. Apparently, there's more than one blockchain that all of these transactions happen on, and at some level, you have the option of selecting one. Is that true? And if so, how do you make a decision like that?
The answer, it is true. There's one internet network, but the internet network consists of HTTPS, which is the secure hypertext. It's the email protocol. It's FTP when you're sending files along the internet. So there's the internet backbone, and then there's all the protocols that exist underneath that. And I'm sure there's dozens of protocols that we all use when we're sending email or MP3 files or WAV files. So it's all a little bit different. And yes, in blockchain, there is the Ethereum network. There's the Bitcoin network. There's the XRP Ripple network. These are all protocols. These are all communication languages that use the internet to send and receive messages and value. I don't really think that small business owners need to get bogged down in the nuances of which network protocol they're using, but you're going to just take my word for it that the biggest, strongest, most secure network is the traditional Bitcoin network. It's not Bitcoin Cash. It's not Bitcoin Silver. It's not the iterations and tangential tokens like Litecoin or Dogecoin, although you can use those. I'm just saying the cryptocurrency network and the one that has all the first mover adoption. It's like the General Motors. It's the big one, right? This the S&P 500 of digital assets. That is the traditional Bitcoin network. So I would focus my time there. And I'll tell you another reason why. And that is Bitcoin is the only, I shouldn't say only, Bitcoin is treated as intangible property by the Internal Revenue Service. The U.S. accounting rules suggest that Bitcoin is an intangible asset. The IRS treats it as property. You can't really say that with other cryptocurrencies and other networks. So is it a security? Well, the SEC hasn't really said yet, but Bitcoin is still treated as an outbuilding or a piece of property, a barn or real estate investment trust. So there are some taxable preferential treatments to Bitcoin that users should probably be aware of. You're still going to be liable for capital gains whenever you sell whatever Bitcoin you receive. And I also want to mention that Bitcoin traditionally has grown around 120% annually as a piece of property. So this is why it's important, or this is why large businesses are holding Bitcoin on their balance sheets, because it helps them offset what could be the 7% erosion of inflation. So you can't really offer those guarantees with other cryptocurrencies, but with Bitcoin has a lot of street cred, so to speak. And there's a lot of potentials, both practically and tax-wise, that make Bitcoin a more viable option for small business owners.
Well, I got more than I bargained for on that one. Thanks, Bill. But I just want to circle back to the question again. So even if we're just talking about Bitcoin, that rides on one and one only blockchain. There aren't several of them supporting the same network. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that, so there are 3 or 4 different versions of Bitcoin. Each uses its own set of rules. So it uses the internet, but it doesn't channel the transactions the same way. It doesn't protect the network. They are different networks, but they're very, very, very similar. It's the Bitcoin Cash network. It's the Bitcoin network. It's the Bitcoin Silver network. So it sounds the same, but they're very different cryptocurrencies, Eric. I think I'm answering your question correctly.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it there. I think you are also, and I may just be overcomplicating it because I'm just getting into it. But thanks for your comments on that. So I'll jump over to this executive order. We had this hit the headlines the other day when we were doing our Zoom conference, and you really hadn't gotten up to speed on it. Do you have a quick take on what that might mean? Because it seems, again, to conflate this idea of crypto and digital currency, which the Fed is threatening to unleash. And by the way, folks, the yuan over in China has already gone digital. So they're ahead of us in that department. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but there's an area where they beat us to the punch. Comments from you, Bill?
I was frightened had a lot of anxiety before the executive order came out. But my take on it is that the executive order doesn't take any direct action or ban to curtail the use of cryptocurrency. It does not establish any new regulatory governmental bodies, which is good. It does not formally institute a central bank digital currency, but there is just no way we're not going to go down this road. It does acknowledge that crypto is tied between. It's very important that we don't lose this industry based on giving us financial strength and technological leadership around the world. So the executive order does recognize the incredible futuristic potential to our GDP. It does direct the U.S. government to support technology in the use of digital currencies and to continue researching into a central bank digital currency. So it doesn't do anything to hurt us. It was kind of underwhelming. And honestly, I think the executive order, I would say, was even welcomed by those in the cryptocurrency industry because we have no clarity from the government. We are regulated by the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. Is it a CFTC, Commodity Futures Trading Commission? Is it the Department of Justice, the U.S. Treasury? Who's responsible for giving us clarity and direction on how we can roll out and build a distributed, decentralized blockchain technology for the United States and not get financially devastated with a fine from a regulatory body? So I'm not worried about the executive order. I think it was a complete non-event in many cases. It does recognize American competitiveness in this space. Countries like Portugal and Singapore are clearly offering tax incentives and tax breaks. El Salvador is accepting and offering tax breaks to get citizenship down in Latin America. So it sees the future. It's trying not to diminish America's ability to take advantage of it, yet try to find some kind of regulatory framework that we can operate inside without getting in trouble.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit about the early days of e-commerce where there was this uncomfortable ambiguity about how all that taxation was going to take place in the regulation. You knew it was coming, but you didn't know where it would set in. And I guess it's still not resolved, but that makes a lot of sense. Well, Bill, you do a lot to bridge the gap between traditional investing and digital assets. Let everybody know how they can get in touch with you if they'd like to get more info on you.
Oh, that would be great, Eric. Well, you can call our office at area code 847-686-4800, or you can text the word blockchain to the number 22828. That's blockchain to 22828. If you'd like to begin subscribing to our Blockchain Advisor newsletter. So it just kind of depends on the conversation that somebody would like to have. If you're only interested in blockchain and learning about it, the podcast might be a good fit. But if you're interested in learning how to incorporate digital assets in your overall business, or even personally in the investing side in 401k or IRA, that would be best to call our office and get in touch with me or leave a message.
And again, that's Senecal Capital Management. Bill also hosts the Blockchain Advisor podcast on Spotify. I hope you'll come back in the near future, Bill, and help us along with this because I know a few questions are going to pour in. I got to jump in a bigger way. And you've got a lot on the ball in that department.
Thank you. Anytime you would like to have me on, I'll drop everything, Eric. I love talking about Bitcoin and blockchain technology. It is the future. And there's a lot of exciting potential, especially in this highly inflationary environment.
We've been speaking with Bill Ulivieri, and this is Fully Threaded Radio.
Solution Man, Ken.
Solution Man, you're my fastener hero.
Just doing my job, ma'am.
SOLUTION, SOLUTION. Solution Industry. We are solution.
Since 1905, Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company have been supplying the world with high-quality fasteners. Our standard product lines include weld fasteners, braided weld screws, leg levelers, self-clinching hardware, clevis pins, rivet nuts, and various other fastener lines, allowing us to support virtually all types of industries. BuckeyeFasteners.com. Buckeye Fasteners, more than just weld.
So, you're in the fastener industry, and your distribution software isn't quite cutting it. You need software that can do accounting, manufacturing, CRM, forecasting, procurement, sales, kitting, rework, wireless warehouse management, barcoding, labeling, formatting, mobile apps, websites, and more. Wow, right? What you need is the #1 manufacturing and distribution software for the fastener industry, InSequel. InSequel provides a full suite of applications written and supported by InSequel, not to mention software support that is unmatched by anyone in the industry. InSequel works with you, not at you. Don't be just another sale. Be a partner with InSequel. Contact us today at insequel.com. That's INXSQL.com.
Parker Fasteners is your premier cold heading manufacturer, forging the future with precision and quality as our top priority. When you think of domestically produced sockets and tamper-proof screws from alloy and stainless, including A286, think Parker Fasteners. Forge the future with Parker Fasteners. Visit Parker Fasteners online today at parkerfasteners.com.
Charlie Kerr from Kerr Lakeside here. You are listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric back with you. And it's the news segment, everyone. And we have a hyper-focused Mike McNulty coming up shortly with headlines and February FDI numbers. You're going to love this one this time, Brian.
Oh, really? Why more than others?
Well, you just have a great appreciation for McNulty's focusedness.
I do.
This time around, the Fastener News Report is brought to us by Würth Industrial Plastics. We appreciate that. But there's been one headline that's gripped the industry over the last several days, and that's going to take up our whole sort of a warm-up for the Fastener News Report. It's related to the situation with nickel prices and the effects on the stainless market. Now, nobody knows more about this subject than Star Stainless. And here to bring us some insight and breaking details is Star President Tim Roberto Jr. Thanks for jumping on, Tim. What can you tell us about all this?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Thanks, Brian, for giving me some time this morning to talk to this issue. It's still evolving, still ever going, but I wanted to at least give an update with what we've seen so far to get a little insight as to what took place and where do we go from here. So we'll focus in on last Monday. We'll call that Rusty Monday because it seems to have taken away the shine and the glamour of nickel. As we saw a crazy 24 hours take place over Monday, basically seeing nickel go up as much as 250% in a 24-hour time frame had caused great chaos in the market.
Yeah, that was shocking. It was almost like watching the gas prices go up around here.
Isn't it crazy? Yes. Yes. Especially for those of us who live in California, we can appreciate that comment. I think we're over $6 a gallon. But for us, what we saw was not like what we've seen before historically. What has taken place in that 24-hour period is there was a lot of speculative trading going into this, which caused this to happen. What I want you to think about in the back of your head is a lot of similar to what happened with GameStop last year, except GameStop is a little tiny company that is looking for a capital infusion with their stock. This is a major metal market and a commodity that's integral to our society. What we saw was a lot of people who would normally hedge metal markets just to do that. So what they do is they short it. And one of the biggest players who shorted it was Xing. the biggest Xinjiang holding company, biggest producer of nickel in the world in China. There's still controversy over whether there was a speculative bet against nickel itself, or they were really hedging what the loss was. But Xinjiang was looking to ramp up production, and I think they really did feel with the amount of nickel that they could put in the market that they would see it come back down, because we did see nickel coming up, just like gas. It was coming up before the invasion of Russia and Ukraine, but that hyper escalated it. And so what we saw similar to gas, we saw in nickel, is there was a hyper escalation through this invasion of Ukraine. When they would take Russia out of the market, you got to, just for an understanding, Russia is your third largest producer of nickel, actually the largest exporter of refined nickel, because Indonesia, Philippines, they don't refine a lot of their own nickel, but Russia does. And so they're, as big as they are, it's about 7 to 10% of the world usage of nickel. So once that was going into effect, there was this speculation that nickel was going to ramp up. You had Xinjiang who basically had the short position that it was going to go down. And when it started going up, remember, it wasn't just Xinjiang. You have other players, other manufacturers, miners, traders, even some of the banks who were involved with Xinjiang, they shorted it as well. So when it goes up quickly, you have what you call margin calls. And so people are looking for their money for that cash offset. Typically what will happen in that time frame is, if it starts to go up quickly, what you'll have is what they call short coverings. And what a short covering is that you're going to do the opposite. You're going to buy into the futures of that to offset your loss. And what that did then is it hyper drove nickel. So you're looking from Monday to Tuesday, you went from $50,000 to metric ton, which is about $28, to then all of a sudden go into $100,000 a metric ton. And so what you did is you saw a ramp up that nobody could do. There was billions of dollars of loss. At the time, in the first short, Xinjiang was looking at losses of about $8 billion. Once they did the short covering, it was still about $3 billion. And then in this 24-hour period, you had about 4 or 5 brokerages that literally would go out of business. I want you to think back to 2008 in the sense of too big to fail. And that was kind of the mentality that they had, is they couldn't allow all these brokerages to go out of business. So literally, you had unprecedented movements by the LME. What they did is they literally shut down trading as of Tuesday. Then they basically said, we're going to rewind back to Monday. And so it was like all the trades that took place, you're talking about $3.9 billion worth of trades, effectively did not take place on Tuesday. So we're going to rewind it back to Monday so that we don't have that epic failure in the market. You don't have these brokerages that aren't going to be able to make these margin calls. So you still have losses, and big losses. Like I said, Xinjiang had a $3 billion loss that they had to figure out. That was part of why we were waiting for the reopening of the market, is because some of these margin calls needed to be met.
Okay, now, Tim, for folks following along at home and unfamiliar, LME, London Metals Exchange, where
Correct.
a lot of this is negotiated.
Correct.
And so, but ultimately, this resulted in stainless mills declaring that they're shut down, right? Which is how it impacts the fastener industry.
Yeah, the way it impacts the fastener industry is because once they shut down the LME, once they shut down the trading of that, you have no idea what that new future price is going to be. So mills have no idea where to put their price point at. So they shut down their quoting, which means now your manufacturers are going to shut down their quoting because they have no idea where that number is going to be. So literally, we had our manufacturers, every single one of them at one point or another said, we cannot quote, and the quotes that were done in the last day or two are no longer valid. And so moving forward, we have to wait until it reopens or until we have a clearer picture of it. And so that's where it directly affects us, is because once there's no price point for future price, the steel mills aren't going to understand where they need to trade at, where they need to put their price point at.
When is this going to open up again, Tim, then? This is sort of sounds a bit wild.
Yeah, great question. It's supposed to open up tomorrow. They have supposedly all the criteria that they were hoping to meet to reopen has been met. The interesting point is going to be to see where that does open up. Now, we did have some manufacturers who are doing some what we call early trading and looking at some of the numbers and getting some feedback from the mills. From those numbers that we're seeing, we're seeing a finished increase of about 17%. 17 to 20% of what we're seeing over our January and February numbers. That's early trading, and that's speculative because they have no idea what Wednesday's morning is going to look like.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think they have some price point that they feel comfortable enough to work off of to move forward, because there is always some inventory in flux everywhere, but they want to have some price point to work off of.
Wow. Well, we're recording this the morning of March 15th, 2022. Folks listening to this will be looking over their shoulder at some of this, but it's excellent background information. And wow, do you have a speculator's mindset on all this, Tim, which I guess comes with your turf, right?
Yeah, you build those relationships, but at the same time, we also have to wait to see what Wednesday plays itself out. This could be that sense of that early trading. Could be for not, could be for right on point. It'd be interesting to see as it does play itself out. This is a evolving situation. I think some of the concern that we have is supply base. You have a demand that has been strong, worldwide demand that's been strong, where there's always an issue with supply, especially when you take a large supplier out of that, on top of all the other supply issues. It reminded me of a quote by Steve Martin. He says, "Chaos in the midst of chaos is not funny. Chaos in the midst of order is." And I think this is exactly what we're finding, is this is literally chaos in the midst of chaos. We've already had supply issues. We've had all other kind of situations that have come up against us. And now on top of this, you're throwing in a metal market that's gone wild. And so for us, it's going to be more, let's take some time, not panic, take a deep breath, let the market play itself out and see where it goes, and then work in relationship with our suppliers as well, with our customers as well. And I think that's part of why this is important. And I think I really do appreciate, Eric and Brian, what you guys do is to help educate the industry to stay on top of this so that we work together through these crises.
Well, I think a similar things are going to happen with titanium, because Russia supplies a pretty large amount of titanium, doesn't it?
Yeah, yep, that's what we hear.
Interestingly, during the same time period, although we saw a little blip in gold and silver, here Wednesday the 15th in the morning, I see silver is back down below $25 an ounce, which is where it's sort of been hovering. I mean, it's been going back and forth around the $25 mark for a while now, and it's really a head scratcher. Well, it's an interesting global market that we live in these days, and there will be a lot more headlines to report as we move along. So great to have partners like Star Stainless, Tim.
No, we definitely appreciate it. To us, I think it really is just being on the same page and continuing to work together. I appreciate all that you guys do to work with us as well, and including recently working together with us on our In-Sequel project of making that a reality, of helping us with our item part numbering system that I think has been very good, was in testing, and now we're going to introduce to the market. So we really do appreciate all that Fully Threaded Radio and Fastener Clearinghouse has done for us to make us a better company.
Sure do appreciate that, Tim. We'll have more to say about the In-Sequel and Star system as it rolls out. It's pretty exciting. Fully Threaded listeners have been hearing about that for a little while, but
yeah, but now it's actually running. Okay,
exactly.
Yes,
long time coming.
Yeah,
yes.
Well, thanks for being here, Tim. We're going to pass it off to McNulty now. As always, you're welcome to jump on whenever we've got stuff to talk about, and that could be pretty frequently going forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that, gentlemen. Have yourself a good day.
Yeah, same to you, matey.
Well, Bri, pretty dramatic stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to ping pong over into another soup of that. As McNulty tees it up here, why don't you do what you do in these events?
Right, yeah. And now for news about screws that you can use, here's Mike McNulty.
Thanks, Eric and Brian. This is Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report, which is sponsored by Würth Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. The dystopian Winter Olympics are complete and mostly forgotten. Major League Baseball will play a full schedule in 2022. The nickel market has gone crazy, and tyrants are tightening their chains. But I am still focused on fasteners and ready to deliver today's Fastener News Report. In this episode, Jun Xu, president of Brighton Best International, joins us from California to reveal the latest results of the Fastener Distributor Index, also known as the FDI. Also in today's broadcast, we have our top story on anti-dumping duties on Chinese fasteners, as well as newsmaker headlines from Chicago Fastener Manufacturing, Birmingham Fasteners, Ramco, Fabory, Ejot, Optimus, Atlantic Bolt, Würth Revcar, and more. On the back page, we're going to talk about moving forward. We'll get to all of that and the latest FDI results right after this.
My name is Joseph Otrower. We got really good people. Work ethic, you know. You do a little more than what you're getting paid for. You know, I'm a great believer in that. That's how you get ahead.
We are Volt.
If you grow too fast, you can go broke real quick. And growing too slow is not as dangerous, but it's boring.
We are Volt.
We know how to build the tools, and if you don't have the tools, you can't do anything.
Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners.
Hi, this is Bob Chiricosta, Event Director for the Fastener Fair USA show. I wanted to let you know that registration is now open for Fastener Fair 2022, May 17th through 19th, and this year it's held in Detroit. Exhibitors know that Detroit always brings in automotive engineers and buyers that don't attend other events, and we're excited about our networking parties, including a return to the GM World Headquarters at the Renaissance Center on Wednesday night. Be sure to register today for the Close By Fastener Show in Detroit at FastenerFairUSA.com. I'll see you there.
Since 1985, the U.S. Anchor product line from Brighton Best International has consistently supplied distributors and end users with high-quality light, medium, and heavy-duty anchoring systems. As the anchoring business has matured over time, new products have been added to the U.S. Anchor lineup to meet the demands required on job sites and industrial facilities. This growth is due to a commitment to invest in product testing to meet and exceed strict industry standards. These new products deliver better performance and improved ease of installation. BBI consistently delivers high fill rates of U.S. Anchor products from 21 regional warehouses. For more information on all U.S. Anchor product lines, please visit www.brightonbest.com/US_anchor.
You're listening to Mike McNulty's Fastener News Report on Fully Threaded Radio.
The seasonally adjusted Fastener Distributor Index for February 2022 was 56.0, up over 3 points from the previous month's result of 52.7. Fastener Distributor Index data is collected and analyzed by the FCH Sourcing Network and Baird. The FDI seeks to identify demand, pricing, and outlook trends within the American fastener distribution industry. To get some insight on these results, we talked to Jun Xu. He's the president of Brighton Best International. Hi, John. Thanks for joining us on the Fastener News Report.
Hey, Mike. How are you? Good to be back.
Good to have you back. It's been just almost exactly 1 year that you appeared for your first time on the Fastener News Report.
Yeah, that's right. It's been almost exactly 1 year, actually.
So it was an interesting time a year ago, and now it's still interesting.
It just hasn't slowed down, has it?
Surprises that we couldn't have predicted a year ago, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's dive right into it. What do you think about the latest FDI results?
You know, I've always felt that the FDI was directionally accurate. You know, I think what each company sees, obviously maybe a little different, you know, depending on sector and industry. But, you know, I think about 12 months ago, when I was last on, the FDI was like trending closer to 70 or something like that. And, you know, that to me was a unhealthy level of growth. You know, like I think companies are struggling to bring in inventory, and frankly, just couldn't keep up with the demand. You know, I think what we're seeing right now in the market is that it's come down from that pace, but certainly we're still growing. And I would say it's a healthier growth. You know, we're at a good pace at a good level right now. The open question that I think everyone has is, you know, are we going to stay here? And there's, I think, a lot of obviously factors and variables that are out there right now that could, you know, push it and pull it. And I think the rest of the year we're going to see more volatility, given kind of what's been going on around the world. So that's the question. I mean, I think as a snapshot to right now where we are, I think we're in a good pace.
Yeah, the big winner this was the sales number jumped to 79.1, up from 64.5 last month, and the first time it's been that high, and it went back 9 months, so it's pretty solid sales number for February.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we're still seeing sales. I mean, we're still seeing one thing that actually is happening is we're getting more containers in. So I think last time we spoke, we were selling more than we were able to bring in. I think we're actually at this point bringing in as much as we're selling, but also as we bring in more, we sell more too, because more inventory becomes available. So, I mean, I think that's kind of driving some of that sales growth. But yeah, I mean, I think overall it's we're at a good clip. I think the question is what's going to be out there 3 to 6 months from now.
Yeah, when you were on last time, you talked about the 3 different buckets of business. I think it was construction, manufacturing,
right,
and oil and gas. I think,
right. And
2 of those 3 were not doing well, but business was still well a year ago. So what's going on with the buckets now?
I think my feeling is that manufacturing is going to come back. That's I think always a good thing for us. Construction is probably going to slow down, honestly. I think with so there's a lot of different factors. If you look at the Fed maybe. And interest rates, the Fed has to raise interest rates. And about the only thing they can't do is nothing at this point, which is what they've tried to do for a while.
Right.
I think the really interesting question, and I don't think people have thought enough about this, is will interest rate hikes actually do anything? And the reason I bring that up is because in a normal supply environment, supply and demand are equalized, right? You have basically as much supply as there is people wanting to buy it. Interest rates go up, cost of borrowing, cost of materials, things go up. And, basically the prices go up and therefore demand comes down. That's sort of how I think it normally works.
Mm-hmm.
In a supply shortage environment, does that same pattern hold? And I think that's a big question. The inflation right now, I think the latest inflation numbers are like 7% or something. Inflation is in effect similar to an interest rate hike, right? In that it makes things more expensive. Has that reduced demand? We haven't seen it, right?
No.
So I think the question there is, will interest rate hikes actually make it worse, or will it, make it better? I actually think that's probably why the Fed hasn't done anything, because they're not sure if raising the rates and making it more expensive for businesses to operate will actually slow demand down. And that's a big question out there. I don't think no one's going to know until you do something about it,
right.
And see what happens. But
playing with fire, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the challenge in 2022 is no one really knows what's going to happen. I think the old way of what people think of, this is what should happen if I pull this lever. It doesn't work that way anymore. I think COVID has, changed the world, changed the way the world works in many ways. I think other input variables like steel, I don't think steel is going to come down anytime soon. It might, I think there's actually pressure to go up. You look at, stainless and aluminum, they've seen drastic hikes. And a big part of that is because Russia is actually a large exporter of nickel, and also magnesium, which is a large input into aluminum. They're not as big of a factor in steel, but they're still, I think, one of the top 5 countries in the world of producers of steel. It's just China takes up a disproportionate amount of that, but Russia is still a factor in there. Oil and gas, we've seen what oil is right now.
Right.
And frankly, sanctioned or not, I think companies individually are deciding to not do business with Russia and bring in Russian oil. So whether or not, the U.S. sanctions that sector, I think we're already seeing the effects of not wanting to bring in Russian oil. So
yeah, a lot of things in play right now, especially with
a lot of things. It's hard to keep track of.
And I know you're in California, so you guys got the high gas prices or high gasoline prices, but nationally the average top $4 so that's like a freak out number for a lot of people in the Midwest.
If I saw $4 gas, that's a good rate for California.
You'd be filling up buckets and putting it in the backyard. What is your gas out there?
I think we're close to $5 now. We might be over $5, but I actually drive, fortunately, a Tesla. So I drive past the gas stations and I smile and just move on. So.
As long as your electricity keeps working. We had a windstorm yesterday and knocked the power out for a while.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyways, well, let's move on to the forward-looking indicator, which we're kind of touching on that in a little bit, but that dropped to 55.6. The first time it's been under 60 in a long time. It's been on a gradual slide since last summer, but now we're under 60 for the first time. Above 50 is still a good area, but it's definitely tempering downward, and maybe that's a good thing. It's kind of, hopefully matching up supply and demand going forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think anything in the 50 to 60 range is good. Too high, it's obviously unsustainable. And, you always do worry about that. If things go up too high, how does it come down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously too low is not good either. So I really think as a snapshot in time of where we are right now, if we can sustain this is actually a good place to be.
So also we talked, even going back a year ago, that labor was a problem, and we were talking about, you were saying people didn't show up for job interviews and stuff like that. Has that changed over the last, everybody's had problems over the last 12 months, but do you see any noticeable changes moving into the getting past the first quarter of 2022?
Yeah, I think labor has changed as well, permanently. In some markets we are seeing more people come online, come back in. But certainly we could go and hire 10% more people today, and be fine with it. And we struggle to do that. I think as many companies are, and also I think what the newer generation, and I make myself sound old here, but what they value is flexibility. And as a company in the logistics business, I don't know how much flexibility we can give. We have to have people in the warehouse. We have to ship products. We have to, and
just having people wandering out the back door.
Yeah, you don't just show up when you want to show up. But there's a lot of, I think side gigs that people piece together into a full-time job, basically, and have the flexibility of working when they want to work. I don't know how sustainable that is. Obviously, as people get older, you have families, and I think you start to worry more about stability and consistency and, the benefits of healthcare and things like that. So, maybe it's a short-term thing, but, certainly right now, we're having a hard time finding enough people in our warehouses. And I don't think we're alone. I think this is consistent for a lot of companies, a lot of industries.
Yeah, it's been a theme over the last, at least the last 12 months, with getting people, what do they call there's some quote about people leaving the market or just leaving the job market in general. But it's been tough. And the number this month, let's see, it actually softened again. Employment went down 48.3 from 55 last month. And so it's going to be, like you said, it's going to continue to be a challenge. The 6-month outlook actually improved just slightly. We had 38% of the people expecting things better 6 months from now, that's up from 33%. 52 expecting it to be the same, and still only 10% expecting things to be worse. So the consensus looking down 6 months of the road is things are going to be the same or better. I know you like to look at a shorter, like a 3-month outlook is what you like to focus on.
Yeah. I generally think if we can get 3 months right, 70-80% of the time, we're doing pretty good. 6 months, you're 50-50, and at like 9 and 12 months, you're lucky to get 20-30% of that right. So,
right.
Yeah. So, I think what we see in the immediate future is that we're, I think, continuing to see growth. And, if I had to guess out to like 6 to 9 months, and again, I give myself a 20-30%
chance of being right,
probability of being right. I think I think things will stay robust. I really do. I think what has happened around the world is that things have gotten more volatile, and in times like this, and I think in history too, the U.S. is generally speaking a net beneficiary when the world goes more volatile. I think people look for more safe havens, they look for more protection, and I think the U.S. economy provides that. So I think foreign investments will probably come into the U.S. more as a result of more volatility overseas.
Yeah,
exactly. And also I think with the the push to revitalize manufacturing domestically and to be less dependent on such a broad, wide-ranging, international supply chain, I think it's good. It's actually good for this industry. I think it's good for us, as a wholesaler. Obviously, a big part of our business is domestics, and a bigger part is imports. But I think if we look at this in the long term, I think the reshoring of manufacturing capabilities is good for this industry. It's good for this country, and frankly, I think it's good for the world too. I think how the U.S. has responded to Russia and what's been going on in Ukraine. The world needs a strong U.S. and a strong U.S. takes the leadership of providing more stability and providing a counterbalance to aggression. So the strength of a country, it comes from its economy and it comes from its people. So I think it's a good thing in the long term for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right that, there's, been a lot of talk over the years of reshoring and the benefits of doing things, but there's a lot of things coming into play here that's really going to long term, I think you're right, strengthen that base in the United States, and it's going to have some long-term benefits for everybody here, I think.
Yeah, I hope so, So yeah, that would be my long-term view, if you will.
Okay, well that's a good positive long-term view. Out of chaos comes good things. Come out of chaos at times, or all times. Just not sure where it's going to be.
Yeah, I think with everything, it's perspective, right? You can see things, and obviously right now there's a lot of challenges to see things. I think positively. In terms of world stability and everything. But there is a balance to that, and I think economically anyway, I think the U.S. is poised to gain from it because people will look for safer places to invest money. The money didn't disappear. It just exited one market and has to go somewhere else. So you're going to go to a place where you find more stability.
Well, that sounds good. Now let's jump into the comments, which we continue to hear from people saying that, like you, others have mentioned that demand outstrips supply, maybe getting a little bit better. Inbound order levels continue to see growth. One respondent said, quote, incoming sales are booming. Now, if we could just get material from our vendors, it would allow us to bring delivery estimates down to a better meet the needs of our distributor partners. Another person commented, quote, demand seems strong for now. Slower growth was expected by many economists at this time, but it hasn't happened. So that's kind of what you're saying as well, that it's still pretty strong and hasn't slowed down. But things are matching up a little bit. But we have another comments were based on material and labor supply. Still a problem, which we've touched on. It says orders incoming are leveling off, but shipments are still strong as last year's orders begin to ship. Product availability is still an issue. Hiring situation worsens with payrolls increasing and competition for hiring heating up. This is the key quote here, I think, or key comment. Even Target is now paying $24 an hour in some areas, end quote.
Right.
That's a lot of money for Target.
It is. It's you annualize that, and it's without overtime, you're almost at 50 basically. And it's a very wide-faceted issue, I think, and it's hard to dissect. I guess if you look at it in terms of on one perspective, I think big companies will get bigger because they can afford to do this, and small companies will struggle. Honestly, and small companies cannot afford to hire $24 an hour basically for that rate. And in some ways, that's a continuation of kind of what COVID has brought about. I think if you're in a shortage environment of resources and materials, your allocations tend to go to people who can buy larger volumes and people who can pay for those bills, right? Because that improves your efficiency. And I think that's why I think a lot of larger companies probably got bigger in this environment. I think the demand continues to be strong, and the one thing that will, I think, slow it down is, once or if, consumers really bring down that demand, that consumer confidence level. It's a very complicated issue, but I think the only way to really have a soft landing from all this is if companies are able to keep up with wages, honestly, against inflation. If you're able to do that, then you can, in many ways, sustain this demand. If you're not able to do that, then consumer confidence will go down because, you're seeing higher cost of living and wages not keeping up. And so you're not going to spend as much money. And so it's going to come down. So I think in many ways, companies are adjusting to that. Certainly we've done that. we just did our reviews, and frankly, the increases were more than we've had in our history. But we also felt that it was important because
proactive.
Cost of living increases, affects everyone. When you have that extra $200, $300 of monthly expenses, obviously it affects the hourly workers more. So we made adjustments based on those factors, right? So it's really, I think, going to be confusing as to like how all this plays out, because there's so many different factors in play. But I do think, even with the Fed, trying to raise rates, will it have an effect or not? Like, no one really knows. I think the one thing that will help us have a softer landing is if wages keep up to inflation. Otherwise, demand will stop or slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into this deflationary cycle, which in many ways is kind of what the Fed wants, right? The Fed's trying to control inflation at 2%. They're trying to go from 7 or whatever it is, the next report comes down to 2. That's the goal. They don't want to go negative. They don't want to go into a deflationary cycle. And I think that's it's going to be very tricky to do that. And also, if you think about deflation, this is what I talk about too. Inflation is when, something costs more tomorrow than it does today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so your incentive then is to invest in today so that you can save more tomorrow. And but in a deflationary environment, it's actually cheaper tomorrow than it is today. So why would you invest in today?
Right.
It's a simple question, but it's a simple inflection point, but it's a very, very important question. Because if you feel like you can wait and you don't need to invest in today, and then that continues on, eventually you're not investing. You're just not investing.
A domino effect.
Exactly. And I did some research on this actually, because, I don't think many of us have been around in high inflationary environments, but, the last time the U.S. had inflation rates to this level was probably in the late 70s, 1978, 1979. That's when I think Jimmy Carter was president.
Right.
I don't think many of us were working when Jimmy Carter was president, or at least had a managerial role to manage inflation. But basically the Fed raised rates aggressively, and it triggered a recession in 1980, 1982. And, a lot of economists say the only real cure to inflation is a recession. And, that's something that, plays on my mind, obviously. And I don't think anybody wants that. I think everybody wants a soft landing. And so I think it's going to be tricky. The Fed doesn't want a recession either. The Fed wants to control that 2%. They don't want to go negative. But the tools they have, I don't know if it's effective. It might make it worse, and then it might lead them to make even more aggressive changes. So it's really hard to say.
And mess everything up.
That's what I'm saying. It's so hard to understand what's going to happen. Like, I think 3 months, I think we'll see more of the same. In 6 to 12 months, like, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? And, I think as a leader, though, and really in anything you do, you have to be optimistic. You have to be optimistic about the future, because if you don't, then who will, right? So,
mm-hmm.
I'm hoping for a soft landing. I'm hoping for, I'm hoping for this resurgence of demand, resurgence of manufacturing. But it's really hard to say what's going to happen. I think if you look out there in the future, like there's so many variables that are conflicting with each other.
Right. And you mentioned the 1970s. I heard stories from people that I would work with who were in finance and accounting, and back then the interest rates that the banks were paying was pretty high, and they would get their checks in, and it was like a mad rush to get them to the bank because you wanted to get that interest, the overnight interest. Now we don't. There's like no interest in the bank. So
yeah, the inflation rate hit like 13% in the late 70s.
Right.
So that's what I mean. I think the Fed, they can't do nothing. About the only thing they can't do is nothing. So rates will go up. That's why I think mortgages and construction will probably slow down. Real estate has seen a sort of a boom in the last 12 months, and I don't see that continuing. So that's probably going to...
Price increases are pretty aggressive.
Yeah, for real estate. So I'm hoping, like a year ago, construction was strong, manufacturing was slow, and oil and gas was... I don't know if it was like negative or not when we spoke, but it was pretty low or pretty bad in trying to resurge. I think now I would say construction is probably going to be down going forward. Manufacturing probably will increase, and oil and gas is already at a pretty unsustainable level. I think, it's going to be the U.S. government policy to pump more oil and gas. The last thing we want is $160 or $200 a barrel oil, and that benefits basically Russia to continue doing what they're doing. So the U.S. wants low prices. Geopolitically, you want low prices, and for consumers, you want low prices.
Right.
So I think the U.S. will pump more oil going forward.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. One other comment from one of the respondents that I wanted to touch on in a couple. The last couple episodes, people have mentioned this too. This comment was, the stress of supply chain problems are starting to affect my purchasing department's well-being. Tired and overworked. The pressure and demands from the OEM world are overbearing. And that kind of ties into, giving people raises too, and maybe taking into consideration for how much work they've been doing too.
Yeah. I mean, people are stressed. And I mean, you look at the growth and you look at the number of people we have, and it's not been easy for sure.
Yeah.
But I also believe that stress and pressure, it's good and bad, right? I think it could lead some people to crack, but at the same time, it could make some people stronger, right?
Yeah, I had a boss once who used to say, when things got a little dicey, he's like, "Do we need to go to battle stations?"
Yeah.
And meaning, okay, let's get together here.
I think it's like a fire. Stress is a fire.
Mm-hmm.
And either burn up or you come out stronger, like steel. Steel gets harder through fire. Right.
Temper it. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. It's a heat treating reference for those fastener people, the manufacturing people. Yeah, good.
So, I mean, take it as an opportunity to grow. I tell people all the time, in our company that, our company can't grow unless you grow, unless you grow in terms of your ability to take on more responsibilities, and in terms of your perspective and your thought process and finding opportunities. Like, you don't look for new opportunities if you're stressed, right? And if you're overburdened already. So, a lot of it is, I tell people again, like, we cannot grow until you grow, until people grow. So, I mean, again, everything is, it can break you, it can make you stronger. You decide which path it takes.
Well, that's good advice for everybody, and I'm going to use that. Good. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, and thanks for your insight and everything on the FDI and the industry in general. Before we finish up, can you tell us what's going on at Brighton Best? I know you mentioned you would hire some 10% more people right now if you could, but I've seen lots of announcements of you guys doing just that, hiring, bringing new people on and expanding, that kind of stuff. So what's going on in the world of Brighton Best International?
Right now, honestly, the main priority is to getting back to a service level that we expect of ourselves and our customers expect of us. And that involves inventory, that involves getting faster deliveries, that involves, again, just having more people in our warehouses to do that. I am extremely proud of how we have handled the last 12 months. I mean, I think our people have really stepped up, and from the call reports I'm hearing, I always hear that we're doing better than most. And in this environment, I'll take that as a compliment. So, I think what's next, we're always looking out there and trying to see what new opportunities there are. Obviously PPE is going to be a continued area of growth for us with gloves. We're expanding that range. We're looking at offering more packaging options for a fastener range going forward. So that's something that we're looking at actively and trying to figure out how to do it in the most efficient way possible. So yeah, I mean, we're always curious. I mean, I think honestly, people say like hard work is more important than being smart, and I agree with that. I completely agree with that. But I think even more important than hard work is actually curiosity. I think if you're curious, you're always asking questions. You're asking what's next. You're looking around. So maybe it's a long-winded way of saying I don't really know what's next for Brighton Best. We don't really have a master roadmap, if you will, but we do always keep asking ourselves, what's next? What else is out there? What else can we do that makes us a better, stronger business? What other skill sets can we add that makes us a better, stronger business? So I think, again, more importantly than anything, just being curious is it's a really important attribute.
Thank you, John. That is good advice. Work hard at staying curious and finding the next thing to get better and stronger. Now, as we close, I wanted to tell a quick story about some nice Brighton Best products that were given to me as a door prize gift. Last fall, I attended a Solution Industries open house, and I was one of several winners of a bucket of useful and attractive BBI products, including ironclad gloves and Proford BBI tools, two of Brighton's non-fastener brands. The gloves and tools feel great on and in my hands, and I encourage listeners to visit brightonbest.com to check them out, along with dozens of other excellent BBI products. Thank you, John, for coming on the show and for sharing your insights and advice with our listeners.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and just want to say good luck to everyone and hope to see you guys around in all the industry events going forward. Thank you.
That was Jun Xu. He's the president of Brighton Best International. The FDI number for February was 56.0 versus 52.7 in January. Visit FDIsurvey.com to participate in the process and get a detailed PDF copy of Baird's monthly analysis. Now for today's top story. The European Commission published a regulation imposing anti-dumping duties on iron and steel fasteners imported into Europe from China. Duties have been set between 22.1% and 86.5%, depending on the company of origin. These measures follow a 15-plus month investigation, which showed the presence of significant dumping on the market, with Chinese imports heavily undercutting European sales prices and injuring the European fastener industry. The EU fasteners industry is worth 3.2 billion euros, with 10% of the market being supplied by Chinese suppliers. EU producers of fasteners, who are mostly small and mid-sized companies, employ more than 20,000 people all across Europe, mostly in Italy, France, Germany, Poland, Croatia, Sweden, and Spain. The anti-dumping duties seek to re-establish a level playing field by taking away the unfair competition caused by the price dumping, allowing EU fastener makers to compete in the EU market on an equal footing with fasteners imported from China. Next up, today's Fastener Newsmaker headlines. In acquisition and expansion news, Agra Solutions acquired Chicago Fastener Manufacturing. Birmingham Fastener acquired KT Bolt Manufacturing. Bufab agreed to acquire all outstanding shares of Pajo Bolt. Ramco Michigan added CNC equipment to expand machining capabilities. Fabory signed an agreement to acquire Fasto Netherlands. EJOT is investing heavily in Germany and Finland. Core Industrial Partners portfolio company, CGI Automated Manufacturing, acquired DFF Corporation and Haven Manufacturing. Optimus added robotic technology to its CNC machining operations. Threadline acquired Atlantic Bolt. And Würth Revcar Fasteners leased a 387,000 square foot facility in Roanoke, Virginia for its new headquarters. In personnel news, Brighton Best International, also known as BBI, made 3 personnel announcements. BBI promoted Bruce Wiggins to the role of warehouse manager at its Houston branch. It also promoted Lucy Rushton to branch manager in Melbourne, Australia. And BBI appointed Emilio Garcia as territory manager for the west coast of the USA and Mexico. Simon Ward stepped down from his position as divisional managing director of Doncaster's European operations. And Bufab appointed Eric London as its new president and CEO. And in 2022 milestone news, Fabory celebrated its 75th anniversary earlier this month, and Advanced Components turns 50 this year. You can get details on all of these stories and more in Fastener Technology International magazine and the Fastener News Report monthly newsletter, both available online at fastenertech.com. Now let's turn to the back page to talk about moving forward. Just as we are finally escaping the dark grip of a 2-year pandemic while trying to navigate unexpected supply chain disruptions, wild price surges, and illogical labor shortages, we are now throttled by the brutal horrors unfolding across Eastern Europe, which obviously change everything and must be stopped. At times like these, it is certainly easy to succumb to despair and to get stuck in place, but it is critical to move forward, do good, and support those that stand and fight, as well as the vulnerable and the defenseless. On the back page of these Fastener News Reports, I have often talked about the constant and universal danger of centralized and unchecked power and control, as well as fallacious utopian schemes which always descend into tyranny and destruction. So now I find myself thinking of these old quotes from the Cold War era. First, we cannot make a heaven on earth, though we may make a hell. And second, the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. As well as more recent ones, including, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And, instead of protesting and trying to change the world, first win the war of evil within yourself. To make the world a better place, first do the things you have to do every day. And finally, peace will be the last word of history. At Fastener Technology International magazine, also known as FTI, as well as on the Fastener News Report, both in audio and newsletter formats, we plan to move forward in all challenging as well as easy circumstances by doing what we are good at: collecting, distilling, packaging, and distributing information that is useful for making, distributing, and using all types of mechanical fasteners and related parts. In other words, one way we are moving forward is by focusing on fasteners. Next up for the FTI magazine is the April-May 2022 issue, the second of what happens to be our 45th year of publication, a milestone that snuck up on me. The April-May issue of FTI will feature coverage of Fastener Fair USA in Detroit, as well as the Fastener exhibits at the WIRE 2022 Trade Fair in Dusseldorf, Germany, as well as editorial content on steel wire, cold forming, parts washing, and retaining rings. We are grateful not only for the opportunity to serve this important industry, but for decades of solid readership, as well as for the hundreds and thousands of providers of interesting and practical editorial and advertising content. And finally, the 5 quotes mentioned earlier on this back-page report are attributed to, in order, Russell Kirk, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, St. Teresa of Calcutta, Jordan Peterson, and St. John Paul II. This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International bringing you the Fastener News Report. Please send your news, pictures, comments, corrections, or complaints to me at mcnulty@fastenertech.com.
This is Jake Davis, founder of the industry-renowned U-Bowl Blend Coffee and president of BTM Manufacturing. As a domestic manufacturer of threaded fasteners and bent wire products, our history as a family-owned business runs deep. My father, Joe Davis Jr., started in the fastener distribution industry over 50 years ago and has always instilled exceptional customer service into myself and our employees. Over the years, we've expanded our production facility to accommodate more projects, added machinery and tooling to increase our productivity, and increased our knowledge of products consistent with industry changes. However, one constant has always been our customer service focused mentality. In an imperfect world, we always strive to put our customers first. It's the way I was taught, and it's the way I've continued to operate our business. BTM Manufacturing, a commitment to service.
ND Industries has been increasing the safety and reliability of fastener assemblies by developing innovative materials and processes since 1955. Names like ND Patch, Thermalock, Electrolock, and Vibratite serve a wide variety of fastening applications across North America and around the world. To see our full line of innovative products or to discuss your application requirements, contact ND Industries today at www.ndindustries.com.
Stelfast customers say it all.
My name's Chris Jones. I'm the operations manager at Sunpack Incorporated in Florida. We certainly rely on Stelfast as one of our prime vendors. We view them more as a partner than just a vendor, and that relationship just seems to build and build year after year. We do a little bit more business and have a very open line of communication. They've been a great partner. They've been good to us, so yeah, we're very happy.
For service you deserve and people you trust, it's Stelfast.
Hello, everyone. This is Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute, coming to you from the Fastener Training Institute and AIM Testing Laboratory in beautiful El Cajon, California. Well, as is often the case, today's Fastener Training Minute comes out of a question I received from one of our students or clients. And the question was, how do I know how tight to make a nylon insert lock nut? Or what is the torque value that I should apply on a nylon insert lock nut? Not just any nylon insert lock nut, but a stainless steel nylon insert lock nut. And this is a very difficult question to answer. It's a very important question to know the right answer to. And when we return I'll tell you what the answer is.
Thanks, Carmen. This is Joe Morris with the Fastener Training Institute. So I recently came across a great quote by Benjamin Franklin. For the best return on your money, pour your purse into your head. That sentiment could not be better stated. The very best investment in your organization should start with training, and the Fastener Training Institute is ready to help train you, your team, and your customers. In March, we are continuing our webinar series, Fastener Basics Like Never Before. Join us on March 11th when we present the webinar, Lifting Hardware. There's a lot of you out there who supply lifting hardware, mostly eye bolts, chain, cable, turnbuckles, and the like. However, there's a lot more to lifting hardware than this short list. Selling and using lifting hardware comes with a special set of risks, and what you don't know can hurt you or even someone else. Then on April 1st, join us for aerospace fasteners, followed by fastener testing and inspection on April 15th. Each session is instructed by our savvy webinar expert, Carmen Vertullo, and is intended for anyone new to the industry, but also seasoned veterans who just want to know more about the products that you buy and sell. For in-person classes, FTI is hosting our next Fastener Training Week in Cleveland, Ohio at the IFI headquarters. Join us for a week of Fastener Training from May 2nd through the 6th. Lawrence Klaus and Salim Brahimi will lead the class with hands-on demonstrations, group exercises, lectures, and in-person manufacturing tours. Participants are then eligible to take the Certified Fastener Specialist exam following the week of classes. Lastly, we're excited to join Fastener Fair once again to present our very popular full-day class, Fastening 101, on Tuesday, May 17th in Detroit. Please visit our website at fastenertraining.com for more information and a complete listing of all of our webinars and classes, or you can just send me an email at jom@fastenertraining.com. Now back to Carmen.
Quality products, quality service, quality customers. That's 3Q Inc., a fastener distributor unlike any you've worked with before. With its unique remote managed inventory stocking programs, wide array of secondary service offerings, and wholly owned cold forming capability, 3Q Inc. has been supporting fastener distributors since 2008. 3Q offers a wide range of 100% American-made fasteners, including 100% made in USA domestic lock washers, clevis pins and bolts, special ITW screw products, Tap-R, Boss Screw, TL stud, and grip tied inserts, Sems lock washer products, split lock washers, tooth lock washers, and square cone, as well as specialty and imported parts. Give 3Q a call today to discuss your needs and experience 3Q quality for yourself. 3Q Inc. www.3q-inc.com.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is Carmen Vertullo returning with the Fastener Training Minute. Today, we're talking about the proper torque for stainless steel nylon insert lock nuts. So let's start with the basic reason why we use torque as a tightening strategy in the first place. The reason is because it's easy to measure compared to a lot of other things that we could use, and it can, in most cases, directly affect tension. That is, there's a direct relationship between torque and tension. The more torque we apply, the more tension we put into the fastened joint. But we're talking about nylon insert lock nuts here, stainless steel nylon insert lock nuts, which theoretically would be installed onto some other stainless steel fastener, a screw, a bolt, or a stud. Theoretically, that would also be stainless steel. So we run into a couple of issues here. The first one is it's not the nut that we need to be concerned about in terms of the tension. It's the screw. The screw is the thing that is going to stretch. So assuming that we know how much tension we want to put on that screw or that bolt or that stud, then we can, based on the torque-tension relationship, decide how much torque we should put on the nut. Now, stainless steel fasteners and stainless steel nylon insert lock nuts in particular lead to a very difficult problem to solve, and that is the problem of galling. Galling is where stainless steel in conjunction with another stainless steel part fitted closely together causes this material to literally rub one component onto another, and they weld together in a cold weld, and they get stuck, and it leads to lots of frustration, especially with stainless steel nylon insert lock nuts. One of the ways that we combat that is with a lubricant. Another way is that typically stainless steel nylon insert lock nuts are sold with wax already on them to help combat that galling problem. Now, the wax has an effect on the torque-tension relationship, which lowers the friction in the nut on the surface and in the threads, thereby requiring less torque to achieve tension, thereby helping us to prevent the galling issue. What it all comes down to, though, is at some level we have to decide how much tension we want on the stainless steel fastener. So we have to know two things: how strong that fastener is, how much torque it can withstand, or how much tension it can withstand would be the better way to say it. And what is the torque-tension relationship based on the lubricant or the coating that is going to be on the nut? And this varies greatly, obviously, from size. Very small size screws will take a very small amount of torque, and very large size screws will take a larger amount of torque. And it's surprising how low the torque value should be for small stainless nuts. The reason is stainless steel is not really very strong compared to steel. You can probably estimate it to be somewhat better than a grade 2 bolt, which would be about 70 KSI, nowhere near as good as a grade 5 at 120 KSI. So about 90 KSI is a good place to start. That is only the tensile strength. What we really need to be concerned about is the yield strength of the stainless, which will be lower than that. So typically stainless steel yield strength is going to be around 65 KSI. We have to be careful, though, because there's some stainless steel fasteners where the specification torque is only 30,000 PSI or 30 KSI. So once we know all of that, we have a very handy-dandy formula. You've all heard it, T equals KDP, that we can use to determine what the torque for a stainless steel nylon insert lock nut should be with some amount of lubricant. So I've developed, because a client asked me to do it, a table that we can share with you if you want it. Just email me at carmenv@aimtestlab.com and I'll share it with you. A table in an Excel spreadsheet that allows us to input the lubricant and the strength of the stainless steel, and thereby giving us a torque value for the fasteners. Typically, a very average situation, off-the-shelf stainless steel hardware, off-the-shelf stainless steel nylon insert lock nuts with wax would give us, for example, on the very small side, a 440, the torque would be 5 inch-pounds, very low. A 1032 would only be 28 inch-pounds. A quarter 20 would be 58 inch-pounds. I could go all up and down the scale, and I will in a minute. But then we get to a quarter 28, for example, which is fine thread, 67 inch-pounds. It's a good idea to avoid fine threads with stainless steel nylon insert lock nuts because that exacerbates the galling problem. But let's keep going up the scale. A 3/8/16 nylon insert lock nut should be torqued at 213 inch-pounds. I hope you're all writing this down. We go all the way up to a 1/2-13, 519 inch-pounds. Now, I just want to warn you, if you use these values and they don't work for you, it's your own fault. Don't blame it on Fully Threaded Radio or Fastener Clearinghouse or me or anybody else. If you really would like to have an authoritative citation on this, you can use the IFI technology connection to get some of this same information. So again, stainless steel nylon insert lock nuts, very difficult item to determine the proper torque because it depends on the screw and it depends on the lubricant, but you can do it. And I can help show you how. If you need any more help, just email me at Carmen, V as in Victor, at aimtestlab.com. Well, this has been your Fastener Training Minute. Thank you for listening.
At Würth, status quo isn't an option. Würth is a global supply chain solutions provider of fasteners, MRO, and safety products, along with value-added services like kitting and assembly, 3D printing, and engineering assistance. Find out what Würth can do for you at WürthIndustry.com.
Hi, this is Robbie Gilchrist with Capital Marketing and Gilchrist Associates.
You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio, hosted by Brian and Eric.
Brian and Eric back with you here now. Doesn't really matter when you're listening. That's one of the beautiful parts of on-demand fastener talk. Wouldn't you say, Bri?
Yeah, just as well, actually.
Speaking of which, we've talked a lot about industry consolidation on the podcast, and we've also heard how fastener companies of every size have used the strong sales environment lately and the unusual business climate to launch major facilities upgrade projects. As a matter of fact, just last episode, for example, we heard about Volt Plastics breaking ground on its new state-of-the-art facility. Now, Würth Industry North America is right on board with both of these trends, as you know, and Würth Senior Director Ken Misch is in an excellent position to explain to us what goes into putting together a state-of-the-art distribution center. He's with us now. Thanks for joining us, Ken. How are you?
Doing great, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Now, you're based in the Denver, Colorado area, isn't that true?
Yes, sir. Moved out here from Indianapolis back in 2017.
Now, that wouldn't have had anything to do with the little thing known as the Timberline acquisition, would it?
It would, sir. Yes. Back in 2017, I became managing director of Würth Timberline as our esteemed colleague, Russ Dorn. He decided to retire and go on to happier things other than fasteners and distribution. So I was honored to take over that company as a managing director for a few years.
Oh, cool. We've had a long, very happy relationship with the Timberline. And I have one of your hats too, I might say.
That's good. Is it a camouflage hat?
No, it's a straight black Timberline hat.
Okay.
This is from a few years ago, I think.
Yeah, Timberline is a very unique company in the Würth Group. It's really the only company that deals in the retail side, where we actually supply screws and fasteners to the retail business of lumber companies, where contractors can come right in and buy the materials they need to build houses or whatever they're doing, whatever project. But it's it's a slower paced business. It's very nice. The customers, it's excellent relationship building. And it's a little different from, the industry side where you're up against schedules all the time for builds and those kind of things. So it's a nice slowdown to make your day a little bit better.
Sounds like a Denver-y kind of business.
Yeah, it does, sort of.
I could see Russ doing that.
Yes.
Right. He was on the podcast many times. He has a great radio voice, as you know.
Yes. Yeah. Russ is he's a landmark out here in Denver, and I don't know exactly what he's doing today, but I know he's still dabbling a little bit, so he's not really relaxing on the ski slopes, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, not his style at all. Although he did know how to enjoy himself. We had a lot of good times at the Pac West meetings.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
He was also a longtime president, longtime participant and supporter of the Pac West.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he would always stop by when we're at the shows in Las Vegas. He'd always stop by and say hi, and we'd knew him for years, so it's very good. So I'm glad you're at Würth Timberline. Okay.
How did you score that hat anyway, Bri? I didn't know there was a camo version.
No,
yours is
mine's
sort
not
of
mine.
these.
Yeah, mine's a black one, but it came from Russ. He sent it to me.
Well, I know, but how did you do that?
I asked him. I saw. Well, he came visiting us at Las Vegas, and I saw his hat, and it was just really cool because it has the red Timberline logo on it. It looked a really cool hat. It still does. And he sent me one.
Now, Ken, when you were out there at Timberline, did you, being kind of a facilities guy, or maybe you weren't back then, but I was wondering if you actually had to take down the sign, and replace it. That would have kind of been a little bittersweet, I would say. That was a cool logo.
No, I've always been a facilities guy for the most part. So I was the start, I think, of a little bit of a transition shift for Würth, where in the past, Würth would maybe impose sales-oriented people to manage their businesses. And I was probably, I want to say I was probably the first that was more of an operations mind to actually be a managing director. So, and then today, there's a few more of us running some of the companies. To me, it's a shift as we go forward that, yes, we are a sales-driven company, but we have to work within our logistical footprint to ensure we meet our customers' needs.
Sounds good.
So let's talk about facilities a little bit more. How did you get into being a facilities guy in the first place, and what exactly does that entail for people who might not be familiar with the title?
Well, I think for me, it started probably about 30 years ago. I used to work for a company called Ring Screw Works. They were a bolt manufacturer in Michigan, and they gave me my first opportunity in this type of business. And they were growing like crazy, and I had the opportunity to help open a new distribution center for them in Detroit, Michigan. And it kind of opened my eyes to this is something I would really like to do. I like being involved from the ground floor, so I can speak from what my past is and how we service customers and how we package parts, and then detailing that into the actual operation and how we can best do that to service our customers. From there, I got the opportunity from Mark Strangquist to move to Indiana and start my career for Würth, which was it was a great experience for me. Mark, we all know Mark Strangquist. He's a great guy, super knowledgeable, really geared on the sales side of the business. So when he hired me, he was looking for an operations type person to help start the transition of consolidating locations and looking into making more modernized type warehouses and distribution centers. So the first project I had was to build a state-of-the-art distribution center right in Greenwood, Indiana. It's right on I-65 on the east side, just south of Indianapolis. And it's a 236,000 square foot warehouse, mostly all automated, state-of-the-art, beautiful office. So it was our first big push, if you will, for Würth in North America for have this type of facility. At the same time, shortly thereafter, we were also building a facility in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, another key area for servicing our customers up in the upper Midwest. That facility actually has a modern day shuttle, which is something that our sister companies use in Europe quite often. And in the US, this was the first shuttle type system gearing off of what they do in Germany. So for us, it was a huge, huge challenge. And today it's running smoothly. We can approximately get 6 to 8 times the amount of picks that we could in the traditional way. So it's the way of the future. And it's really exciting to see what we can do. And as we go through the COVID or recover from COVID times, what we've all seen, all these distribution centers, is it's harder and harder to have good staff on time at work because the job market is just really, really brutal for us.
Right. There's no end to the comments about that aspect of things. And so let me ask you this then. The Indy facility, which I had the pleasure of touring with Mark, like right before you started moving all your materials into it. And it was thoroughly impressive, I remember. All I had to compare it to was a similar kind of scale facility that I once saw. It was a Fastenal facility, and I kept thinking about that and making comparisons. But you were telling me then that your next facility was an even bigger project, and I bet you learned a lot from the Indy project.
Absolutely. I think, in traditional times, you think of the narrow aisle type of setup, and that's what most of distributors have today is a narrow aisle, high bay, and then you work with order pickers or turret trucks or swing reach trucks. Everybody calls it something different. But the problem again is that you're relying on people to drive those vehicles. So really what we learned was how can we do more with less? Obviously, everybody wants to do that. How can we bring the goods to the worker so the worker can be more productive, right? It's much easier to stand there and have the goods come to you, and he can pick the order, take his time, make sure he's servicing his customer correctly, and then the goods just go back and get put away for the next order to be pulled. So that was our real focus. And if you remember Greenwood, there's some shuttles and then some conveyors and a mezzanine where the smaller type package stuff comes down from upstairs. The larger stuff comes in from the the bulk racking, and they get consolidated at one spot where the operator can just stand there and pick the orders. So that was our intent. And then the Brooklyn Park facility was even more fast, right? So we needed more ability to increase our pick load. So we got into the shuttle and the Knapp system. I don't know how many people have heard of Knapp. It's a huge company in automation. They're based in Austria, and they do have a location here as well in North America. I believe it's down in Atlanta, Georgia. But they're very technical, and they just have a knack for moving small bin type product to the operator. So that was a big push there, and that's kind of what led us into the next level.
So the Germans have been in, or the Austrians too, have been into this thing. I mean, I was transferred to Germany in 1990 and from an American company, and we had warehouses all over the US. And we had bought a company in Germany which had what the Germans lovingly called a Hochregallagersystem, a high-level storage system, which was fully automated, that could pick things, and you put orders in that ran around and picked things automatically. And the Americans were horrified that this little 2-bit German company had a much fancier system than they could even dream of.
What year was that, Bri?
1990.
Well, I think that the Germans definitely have a leg up on us now, but we're gaining on them over here, at least for Würth. We are. Again, we're using their resources and all the things they've learned, like you mentioned, Eric. You know, every time you go through one of these big facilities and you learn something new, like, you know, there's ways to continue to improve the process. And really, that's what distribution's all about. Every time, every day, every building, every location, how can we improve the process? How can we get faster? How can we save our customers money and time? And that's really what, whether you're distributing fasteners or baseball caps, that's what it's all about. And each one of these buildings that we do, you know, definitely gives us the opportunity to get better.
So when you talk about a shuttle, to me, that is one of these autonomous little robots, is it, thing that runs around by itself and turns up at where the people are putting the order together?
Yeah, the shuttles, so there's a lot of, again, they improve as well. So many of the old shuttle systems, if you think of a high bay storage system today, instead of having an order picker or a reach truck go up and down the aisles, you have these little carts basically that ride on a rail, and they go up and down very, very quickly and pick parts. Well, today, they're even improving upon that. So instead of having one shuttle per aisle grabbing orders, now they have a shuttle for every level in that aisle. So you could have, if you're 10 levels high on racking, the shuttle, you'll have 10 shuttles in that aisle. So again, you're improving your productivity tenfold. That's the type of shuttle we have today in our Brooklyn Park facility, that there is a shuttle on every level in every aisle, thus, giving us huge productivity. I think last month alone, we were pushing almost 700 picks per man per hour.
Wow.
Goodness.
Bri, I think you were talking about what's being called the AMR, or the autonomous mobile robot. It doesn't sound like that's the same thing as a shuttle. Are you getting into AMRs also, Ken?
They have some in Germany. We have not experimented with that yet here in the U.S., but there is some talk of doing so. One of the challenges we have with our small pack being up on a mezzanine inside the warehouse is once we move the product up there, conveying it to a pick station on the upper floor is a little difficult. So that's where we're looking to get into those type of vehicles.
Yeah, no, I got that. See, Bri, we always knew, Daleks can't climb stairs.
Right. Right. We still all know what a Dalek looks like.
Well, it's a real challenge because these mezzanines typically can't handle a lot of sustained weight in one area. So you can't have heavy equipment up there.
Right.
But the point is, these AMRs are a thing now, and they're not futuristic sci-fi. I mean, they're actually operating, and I mean, that gives warehouse workers the shivers, I have to imagine, when they are. I mean, because the transition is you're working side by side with them right before they fully replace us.
Absolutely. And I think there is some of that, Eric, where maybe some employees are getting nervous. But what we try to do at Würth is ensure to our employees that we're trying to get better. We're not trying to replace workers. We're just trying not to become so reliant on workers. So in doing so, our workers get more and more educated in technology. I think they would much rather be working with a robot or automated guided vehicles or what have you than just standing there picking out of a box. So for us, we try to have that approach where it's good for the employees, it's good for the business, and it's good for our customers. They're growing, we're growing, and our customers are growing. So it's just improvement. And if you don't want to work in improvement, then I don't know what you want to do, right? It doesn't matter what level you are in the company. If you're always looking to improve, those are the employees that we want to have.
Well, no, that's clearly an ethic at Würth, and we get that. So that's good. But you kind of swerve that into a question that I was going to ask you, which is, in this new form of distribution center, what are the opportunities for human workers? I mean, what should people be looking at if they want to stay involved with warehouse work? Because it isn't picking for long, it doesn't sound like.
Yeah, I think today's workers, they should really be focusing in on some engineering was always good, right? That's a scary word for a lot of people. Like, I have nothing to do with engineering, but just understanding how equipment and processes work together, that's huge. I think anyone they really need to understand how lean is, take some courses in lean and understand that process, because it just makes you think differently versus just all productivity. If we can focus on lean activities, as we all know, that will drive, better productivity. Electrical, I think that's another big push, electrical and hydraulics. This way the employee can have the ability to maybe work in the maintenance field. One of the drawbacks to having all this technology is you really have to have, high level maintenance type people in your operation.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're relying on everyone to know everything. And that's just not possible. So
yeah, then you got another Brian Musker situation,
That's right.
Oh, no, not as bad as me. But you do have to have the specialization changes, because you've got to have people who are really comfortable dealing with computers. I mean, really comfortable, because that's how the only way they can deal with these little autonomous.
Yeah. And I think it's pushing us all to be a little smarter, right? You can't just, I hate to use the term ditch digger, right? But we can't just have ditch diggers anymore. We have to have people that are engaged and people that, really want to learn every day. There's something to learn new every day in a distribution center. You might think, from the outside looking in, say, well, that's just boring. You're just picking parts, or you're just driving a high-low or a fork truck. It's far from that today. So there's lots to do, lots of different jobs, lots of different opportunities. For me, not to sound like the homer, but I mean, it's just exciting every day. There's always something new going on, a new customer, a new process. So it's really, for me, it's exhilarating.
So then, you've seen the changes then over even the last 10 years, and you've had the luxury of having some money to spend on these things in the Würth organisation. So where do you see this all going then? I mean, if you see, and now you use all AMRs to drag stuff around and give them to people for their orders, where do you see this could go in the future then?
Well, I would say that that's kind of what we're doing today. So one of my biggest projects right now that I'm working on is optimizing our footprint in North America. In the past, we would have locations everywhere. And, some of the bigger customers that we service, they would say, hey, Würth, you have to have a location right here next to me because I'm not real positive on my processes. So we don't want to have to worry about having our product delivered on time. So you need to be nice and close to us. But what we're finding is as we get smarter and more optimized, that we don't have to be right next door. We need to be in key areas in the country where we can service these bigger customers very quickly and quicker, right? Like, I can give you a little example. I believe we consolidated 9 locations last year right here in North America. And we actually improved our output, improved our customer scoring for all those 9 different locations. So it's just the way of the future. And I think Fastenal is doing the same thing. They're closing locations quite readily. And what we're both doing, what we're all trying to do really, is get closer to our customers So one of the big pushes that we're also doing is, in the past, we would pick parts in the branch, deliver them in our van, right to the customer, have that engagement with the customer.
Yep.
So today we're consolidating that smaller facility, putting it into our bigger DCs. And then those same people that were working in that small branch, we actually have them live right in the customer location. So they get to develop that relationship, that better relationship. They get to understand more because they're able to spend more time on the working floor of our customers. And then the DC just delivers the parts when we need to. So they actually become part of the customer that we're servicing. And we believe that's the model going forward that will help solidify more and more business for us.
It sounds like hyper VMI in a way.
Yes, I think it's a good way to say it.
Maybe that's a new term we just invented on this episode, guys.
Can I keep that?
You can.
But it really is, I believe, the way of the future. And like I say, other distributors as well are using it too.
I mean, it makes sense. But the danger is, you're right, which you've addressed, the danger is that you basically end up distancing yourself from your customers because they all get to know the local guy who's in their office, the local Würth office or something, just like the Fastener people do.
Yeah, I think, again, the key is when you have local people working for you and the customers, that's what it's all about. I can tell you a lot of stories of some of these remote customers that we have that are way up in the north, where our guys know all the guys on the floor. They go fishing with them on the weekends. But there's still that separation. Obviously, they work for our customer and our employees work for us. But again, it just really solidifies that relationship. It builds some trust. And, especially if you're having some issues or whatever, it's a lot easier when you have people right there on the floor. I can't express that enough, that it's so important when a customer's feeling some anxiety about something that they can just go to a cubicle or a spot on the floor where our staff is and just ask the question.
We're speaking with Ken Misch. He is Senior Director at Würth, and he's driving the facilities and consolidating all the locations in Würth North America currently. So, Ken, there's probably some smaller and mid-sized distributors in the listening audience who are thinking to themselves, geez, this is probably going to be out of my reach. What size distributor do you think you need to be before these kinds of investments are going to make sense?
I think, Eric, in my opinion, I think once you start approaching $40, $50 million, that you probably should start looking at some automation. And the reason I say that is once you start getting into that range in sales, annual sales, that tells me that you probably have a pretty good base of customers that are quite large versus maybe having 10,000 customers all at a really low sales volume. So I think as you develop as a company and you start attaining business for larger accounts, $4 to $5 million accounts at a time, then that's when you need to start looking into some automation, because those larger customers, they're always going to want more from you. They're going to want better service. They're going to want all kinds of things. And you're not going to be able to supply that, in the modern day of just picking with order pickers and those kind of things. You're going to need to start getting more and more technology.
Interesting comment. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I think there's probably a few sighs of relief out there, because I was thinking the number would be a lot lower. I think that leaves a lot of room for guys who are comfortably operating in the Stone Age, at least for a little while.
Well, yeah, I think it really just depends on your customer. What's your customer base? Most smaller customers, they're not too worried about certain things that would require automation. So it's when you start getting into the bigger accounts that it's going to start to matter.
Well, I can't wait to come up to Minneapolis when we meet up at the NFDA meeting in June. I hope Brian can join us too. You promised me a tour of the facility up there you're working on. And what is it that you're going to really showcase when we go on that tour?
I think the main thing for you guys to see is the quickness and the employees, and you see how stable they are. There's not a lot of chaos in the warehouse. It's very smooth. There's no stress, right? Like a lot of these warehouses you can go in, there's a lot of stress, high-lows racing all over the floor. You won't see that at Brooklyn Park. It's a very relaxed, controlled environment. and people are not overstressed or overworking themselves.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to seeing that.
I look forward to seeing that. You're right. My experiences in these places is not relaxed and stress-free, I have to say.
Well, and hopefully the weather is a little better up there at that time.
Well, it is Minneapolis. We'll take what we get.
That's right. That's right.
But I got to say, when I received the email from Mary suggesting that we talk on the podcast, I saw on your title there, CDC director, and I thought, oh man, we're going to get some really the inside scoop on what all went down with this whole pandemic. But then I realized now it's probably something else, and it's connected to your work with other types of facilities work, isn't it?
Yes. It's central distribution is what it stands for. And optimization, it all comes together, right? Like, not only do you have to build these bigger DCs and optimize them, but we also have to work with the smaller facilities too, and find ways to solidify our processes to ensure profitability and growth within our customer base. And one of the things we're also working on, Eric, and really get the big push from our owners in Germany is sustainability. And as we go forward in the next few years, Germany really wants us to, when it comes to our buildings, they want us to really think about, what can we do to continue with improving our sustainability? Are we using, they use these 4 pillars. And so that's kind of what we do when we look at a building, or we're trying to get in a new building or build a building. Are we using renewable energy? What can we do to have zero emissions, right? In our logistics, can we cut down on the amount of trucks that we're running all over the place? Material life cycles and supply chains, what can we do to improve that? And then just thinking of buildings, you think about your buildings that you're in or you're utilizing, can you have LED lighting? Can you do those kind of things to cut down on waste of electricity? All those little things. Recycle. Are we separating the trash, the cardboard from the plastic wrap? And those of us in the distribution industry know very well there's just a boatload of stretch wrap and cardboard material that for years we would just throw them in the garbage, right? So now at least there's a big push on separating those two and recycling them. So anything we can do to help the environment, that's where Würth's at. They are really pushing this in Europe, as I think most people know, just because of the lack of resources that they have. Unlike here in the U.S., natural resources are a little more abundant. So it's a good push. It's something we should all think about, and Würth is trying to be in the forefront for that.
And it's very Germanic too.
Well, there's no question Würth is leading the way in that department. And now that I understand the full scale of your responsibilities, I'm even more impressed because, one of those buckets is large in itself. So you're obviously, you're managing quite a bit. Hats off to you, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys today. I really, really enjoyed this.
Good. Well, people will have learned. And presumably those people want to come up and have a look at your fancy warehouse, I would think, including me.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, more reason to get out to the NFDA summer meeting in Minneapolis this year.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, Ken, we enjoyed it too, and I'm sure we'll be speaking to you in the interim, but if not, it'll be June. Ken Misch, he's a senior director with Würth Industry North America. He's got a bird's eye view of the future of distribution. We heard a little bit about it today. I'm sure we'll be talking to him down the road, and we'll be talking to you folks in just a moment. It's Fully Threaded.
Right here.
In continued efforts to improve the industry standard, Goebel Fasteners has developed a patented new multi-grip lock bolt system made completely from T304 stainless steel. In applications where an extensive grip range is needed and a consistent flush pin break to the collar is favorable, the Goebel T304 stainless steel lock bolt system is the new and improved standard in the market. Essentially, the T304 stainless steel lock bolt system's extensive grip range and various sizes can replace up to 14 sizes of the classic 6-groove locking fastener system. Gerbil Fasteners, the leading rivet source.
So, you're in the fastener industry, and your distribution software isn't quite cutting it. You need software that can do accounting, manufacturing, CRM, forecasting, procurement, sales, kitting, rework, wireless warehouse management, barcoding, labeling, formatting, mobile apps, websites, and more. Wow, right? What you need is the #1 manufacturing and distribution software for the fastener industry, InSequel. InSequel provides a full suite of applications written and supported by InSequel, not to mention software support that is unmatched by anyone in the industry. InSequel works with you, not at you. Don't be just another sale. Be a partner with InSequel. Contact us today at insequel.com. That's INXSQL.com.
Cut the no quotes out of the equation. Eurolink is your go-to resource for uncommon and hard-to-find metric fasteners that others can't even quote. Contact the sales team at EurolinkFSS.com and get your hard-to-find metric fasteners delivered.
Stainless Stan here, coming to you from Star Stainless. Star quality is more than products, just the way Wayne wanted it to be. It's simple. We're Star.
Hey, this is David with ND Industries. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Scanning the headlines here at Global Fastener News, Bry, I see longtime FCH member Ramco is expanding its manufacturing capacity to meet growing demand for domestic fasteners.
Wow, so it sort of sounds like Jun Xu might have been spot on in his comments.
Yep. Well, you can see what's happening, and I think he has the right mindset to roll with the market. We're all going to have to adapt to lots of changes coming down the pike.
And I think Ramco, they're somewhere around based pretty much near you in northern Ohio, aren't they?
That's right. Fabulous Hudson, Ohio.
Oh, fabulous Hudson, right.
A very beautiful city.
Yeah.
Used to get my hair cut there, actually, Bry.
So what stopped you? You decided it wasn't quite so beautiful.
COVID.
Or you stopped getting your hair cut.
Yeah, darn pandemic.
I know. It never stopped me from getting my hair cut, I might say, okay?
Affects different people in different ways, don't you know?
Yep.
Well, it was good of Jun Xu to sit in with McNulty today. He really did offer some sage words of wisdom, and we appreciate it. Also appreciate our other guests on today's episode. Ken Misch, Senior Director with Würth Industry North America. Tim Roberto of Star Stainless. Bill Ulivieri of the Blockchain Advisor podcast. Mike McNulty had the Fastener News Report. He was hyper-focused today, everyone. And Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute. Thanks one and all. Thanks also to the sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio. The title sponsors are Brighton Best International. Tested, tried, true. Brighton Best. Global Fasteners. Quality the first time. Global. Star Stainless Screw. Right off the shelf, it's Star. Also sponsoring Fully Threaded Radio are Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Fastener Fair USA, Fastener Technology International, InSequel Software, ND Industries, Parker Fasteners, Solution Industries, Stelfast, 3Q Inc., Volt Industrial Plastics, and Würth Industry North America. We appreciate the support so much. Couldn't do it without them. Couldn't do it without you listening in. Thanks so much. And let us know what you think of the podcast. The email address is ftr@fullythreaded.com. Well, Bri, we've talked about a lot of hyper things today. Hyper-threadedness, hyper-VMI, hyper-focused. I think there was another one in there somewhere.
Hyperventilation.
But here's one that's hyper-weird, at least the way that I see it. Looking at the pseudo news and business site, foxbusiness.com, Yes, people actually refer to this for actual information. Headline, Ukraine receives shipment of Starlink terminals less than 48 hours after Elon Musk promised them.
Yeah, no, they hadn't told us what they're going to do with them yet. Okay.
Ostensibly, with the crisis in Ukraine, Elon Musk has been sent to the rescue by filling the gap of all of the interrupted internet service. So he's, in theory, sent all these terminals out to use the Starlink network that a lot of people have heard. And the thing that strikes me as so strange about this is, to me, the whole article seems like it falls into that category of, hey, is it a dessert topping or is it a floor wax? Because to me, it looks just like a wholesale ad. And I tell you, they've got this retired general there commenting on it. Story starts, Ukraine received a shipment of Starlink terminals on Monday, less than 48 hours after SpaceX CEO Elon Musk said the service was activated in Ukraine. Musk previously said on Saturday that Starlink was active in Ukraine and terminals were en route after the Ukrainian government reached out to him on Twitter. Now, here's where it gets really spammy. There's a photo caption here that basically gives their whole pricing structure. Hint, hint. Starlink Premium requires a $500 refundable deposit and charges a $2,500 fee for hardware and a $500 per month service fee. Premium deliveries are expected to begin the second quarter of 2022. I mean, how crass can you get, man?
Right. I'm not sure if you're dodging bloody bullets and bombs, you can rush up to the bank to try and get the money to pay for it.
Well, you've still got to somehow get on Facebook, Bri.
Yeah. I mean, their internet connections all go through Russia, which has tried to shut them down. So they probably do have a pretty serious problem.
Well, look, we're not going to make light of the huge tragedies that are occurring on an hourly basis in Ukraine. I mean, a lot of that is real. A lot of it is theater, as we know, but there is genuine human suffering occurring, and it's terrible. No way to overlook that.
Yep.
And I'm quite certain that there's a lot of places that are in complete blackout. Starlink may be an answer to that, but the thing is, to me, this whole thing smacks of a prefabricated crisis and solution. And I think that's exactly what we're looking at here. And they're putting their whole service contract out there under the guise of a news story. And they're endorsing it with a retired general, the whole boot. Thanks a lot, Fox Business, for showing the way.
Yeah.
Hyper greasy.
It is, actually. But it'd be nice if it wasn't that way, okay?
Fortunately, the fastener industry is a bastion of commercial purity and happiness. But we just felt like we needed to point that out, everybody, because it is a hyper world in so many ways. And we're hyper happy that you joined us on the podcast today. That's going to put this one in the can.
Right.
So I'm sure your dog Hyper has to go out to the bathroom right now and you got to split.
Yeah, I do. I've got all sorts of animals. You think I have a bloody farm, but
we're going to get out of here. Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll get to work lining up the next one for you. And until then, for Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Get out there, sell some screws, walk your dog if he needs it. We'll talk to you next time.
Keep well.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fastener's Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.
It never stopped me from getting my hair cut, I might say, okay?